Okay. 2 seconds.
Yeah, of course.
Out with the shirt.
Did you see how I blurred it in the last
Yeah,
one?
you just put a fucking logo.
A fucking logo on it.
No, what you need to do is we should get you should get Alex to body paint the logo onto you. Just like next time.
So next
A
time-
tat.
like
No,
a-
the next time you do
Yeah,
that, just like pretend it's blurred.
Yeah. Just like fucking an English football fan or something.
Yeah. Get the shirt painted on you. And then just like, take the shirt off.
Oh, see how many of our viewers noticed just like my nipples sticking through. I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know
Just-
if we can say
Yeah,
that.
this is definitely starting like a G&T special. Hi all. So, welcome to HMG, the real episode 14. Not the last episode, which was actually episode 13, I'm informed.
Listen here, you little shit.
Yes, well. I am the guest today. I'm Jackson Calder Black, or Calder Jackson as I am on Facebook. And I'm here with Gorch and Tyler.
Thank you for having us on the show.
Thanks for having us on the
I've
show,
taken
Jackson.
control. Monday nights have finally gotten one up on the RSG crew.
Well.
Well, I mean, you guys always seem to get the one up in the tournaments. You guys are freaking.
It's because we let them win. Come on.
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
worked through this.
Yeah.
We
Absolutely.
worked through this, Tyler.
Yeah, it's totally not because we're incompetent.
Yep.
Yeah.
Official press release. We let them win.
Yes.
Okay. It's not like Gorchin's had his day ruined the last two tournaments because on Monday night has come up and beaten him.
Okay, so this is the voice of Tyler.
This is the voice of Gorchin, who for some reason seems to be the target for this episode.
Oh, always. This is just the rivalry.
That's not fair. I was the target before we started rolling.
Yeah, absolutely.
On hard.
Oh, okay. So this is like Civilization, where you guys have just turned your backs on me. So you guys are Italy.
And I don't want to be associated with Italy.
I don't know enough about.
There are
what you're
better
talking
countries
about.
if we're talking about World War II stuff.
Yeah, they changed sides.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of World War II stuff, this is HMG. We are a bolt action podcast,
Yes.
mostly.
Yes.
Mostly.
You pretend to, except for when you talk about, Necromunda, like last time.
Well, funny you should mention that.
It was part of our hobby update.
Yeah.
It's like
Absolutely.
it's like Jackson doesn't even watch the show.
Yeah.
We have
He's
a hobby
definitely
section.
not
I
our
watch
most-
it religiously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Oh,
you, Jackson. Thank
before we do jump into hobby progress, Jackson, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, okay. So I'm just, one of the local Perth wargamers. I play with her.
Just.
Yeah. a group of guys who loosely call ourselves the Monday Nights because we used to meet on a Monday night to play games.
I didn't know that. That's really cool.
Yeah, well, Monday night.
What?
Seriously?
I didn't.
It's just a really bad pun, like most things to do with us. Yeah,
And you
Yeah.
weren't able to put that together?
wow,
No.
Tyler.
Tyler checking equipment again.
Always.
Yeah, always again. Yeah, I've played bolt action since probably we've played against since V1. Started
right.
wargaming with 6th edition 40k and then shifted over to bolt action when it
My
just wasn't
commiserations.
filling a spot. Yeah, and the last sort of 4 years ago, we started to get involved in the wider scene, out and about, play against some different people.
Showing us all how it's done.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, no, that's just Russ. The rest of us sort of follow along.
I'm here to contend that because you, my friend, I was doing my very first bolt action tournament. I played about 3 games before that. I had just bought some Germans and I posted being like, hey, I need some help with list building. You fucking delivered. You were like, what do you want to do with it? I told you like 3 things and you're like, here's this
Yeah,
list.
10 assault rifles in one squad and I cringed.
Oh, mate. Yeah, that was the one thing I wanted. I was like, I'm not
Yeah,
budging
that and the
on
Panther.
That and the Panther.
It was like, I saw it and went, this is going to be shape up to be a really interesting list.
Oh, yeah. And
That's how Jackson says shit.
yeah, well, sure. No, I'm well aware. But the point is, those 2 units aside, the rest of the list worked really well, and I got like 5th.
Actually, all of it worked really well in combination. You
Yeah,
did really well with it,
well,
especially for considering how little you played.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think you actually destroyed like in terms of ladder positioning, you destroyed me by like a long shot. I think that was like the one tournament where I lost like 2 games in a row and drew the last one. And I'm like,
you sure that wasn't last tournament?
Yeah, either. But it was the same result for both.
The dude gets like best allied general, and then it's just like this. Gah.
It's because we all rag on him so much.
No, I told you that I did it out of luck, and you all didn't believe me. And I was like, well, I'm gonna go prove it now.
You're talking nonsense. Like, you seriously are a threat when it comes to competitive bolt action.
Yeah,
in our scene.
My point is that I think you too are a threat. I think you don't give yourself enough credit.
Yeah, we're capable.
It doesn't. I think. Well, out of all of the games we played, Jackson, I think we went 1 for 1. Except now I think you're 1 up on me. I think you've had 2 victories in the last games that we played.
Yeah, something like that. Like, for the viewers, Gorchin and I have got a bit of a friendly rivalry going on.
Friend is a strong word.
Yeah, we give each other hell all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that score doesn't reflect how tight every one of those games have been.
No,
it's
they've all
come
been
right
very
down
close.
to a handful of dice rolls.
Always,
Which is what you want, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a good game when Gorchin and I are across the table from each other.
And that goes back to that other episode where we said how to get better at bolt action, and that's pick somebody that's better at you or better at parts of the game that you're weak at.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you wanted to talk about differences, Gorchin plays a masterful 6-turn game.
If I get 6 turns.
Yeah. If he hits a time limit, he hasn't got the time to finish acting on things. I play a pretty good 4-turn game. After that, if that first 4 turns hasn't gone well, that's the end for me.
Yeah. No, that actually tracks, because I'm just remembering that cheese wagon that you played with. That was literally a dying moment of the 6th turn kind of thing.
Spot on.
Yeah, so, if you can give Gorchin full time, he can do some work.
So that is the bane of my existence, is play slowly. Because I'm like, fundamentally, I'm not a patient person.
Yeah.
So it's just like, if I get somebody who's slow playing, not for the intent of curtailing me or being difficult, but is just inherently a slow player. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's really challenging for me, because I'm always like, I'm thinking at least 1 or 2 dice ahead.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, come on, just pick.
Yeah.
So I know what I can do with my next dice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I've already got a couple of options that I've decided on what I'm going to do. So when I come across a slow player, it just grinds against like my internal drive.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I'm just like, oh God, I can't stand this. And of course, when you get frustrated, you don't think as clearly.
Yeah,
you make
absolutely.
mistakes.
Are you saying I'm a slow player?
No.
If you can halt Gorchin's plans within the first 4 turns,
Yeah.
you're on the money.
That's actually quite surprising to me. Well, not surprising, but it explains your own OODA loop, which is a throwback to one of the early episodes.
And all the viewers, please use it against Gorchin.
Yeah. No, because like, you're a fast player, and so when you're talking about the OODA loop scenario, you're like, you want to get in fast, you want to do it so you've got your opponent off step. If someone's playing against you and they want to be a real dick about it, they just play slow, and that interrupts your OODA loop because it's not.
Well, it's the thing is,
we actually don't have many slow players on our circuit.
Not too many.
No,
but,
not really.
But the thing that it's not so much that it interrupts my OODA loop. The thing is, I will OODA loop quickly, because I'm one of those people who go, and an idea that you can execute is always better than an idea that you're still thinking about.
Yeah.
And so I'm always like, I'll always come up with a couple of really quick ideas, and I won't necessarily I won't be married to them, but at least I'll have a few ideas.
Yeah.
The problem is, when I start building up
And
those
committing.
ideas, it's not committing. I start getting frustrated when I'm just like, okay, I know which one of these is the best idea.
Yeah.
And then somebody does something, and I then don't do another OODA loop.
Yeah.
And go, okay, what did they actually do?
Okay,
And then I'll just pick one of the ones that I've already like figured
Preset.
out.
Yeah.
And so that's the part where the frustration kicks in, because I don't go, stop, you've got 4 ideas. What did they just do? Let's look at it.
Yeah.
Let's come up with at least one other idea.
Yeah, to build upon it. Yeah.
And then go, no, my other 4 ideas were better. Let's pick the best one and move forward. So that's the part where I get caught up on.
Cool. So we're now finished. Are we finished analysing Gorchin's psychology?
I think so. So, hobby progress. Supposed to be the first topic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, let's start with you, Jackson. What have you been up to recently, man?
So, bolt action's my main game. I play a bit of other stuff on the side, Gaslands, fair bit of MESBG, so Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, nice.
That's sort of I really enjoy painting that.
It's also like, not to paint either one in one particular light. But it's a pretty like good way of having a bolt action style activation system in a fantasy game.
Yeah, absolutely.
It definitely is its own game in its own right.
Yeah.
That does its own things. But
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a very different style. I mean, bolt action's very reactive.
Yep.
MESBG is very pre-planned.
Yeah.
So yeah, you that's a lot more like chess than bolt action is.
Oh, right.
So those are my sort of main games. The Monday nights sort of play a whole heap of other stuff on the side. So we play a lot of bolt action, but we will occasionally take sort of 6 months breaks and dabble with other things.
Nice.
So at the moment we've started D&D campaign, which I've never
Very
role
cool.
played before.
Nice. What's
yeah,
your character?
a monk. So
Yeah.
we're at level 2 after 4 sessions.
Oh, that
that's-
is stingy.
Yeah. I mean, not to tell
Nearly
anyone
level
how to play
3.
their own tabletop
No, of
game,
course,
but
of
that's,
course.
that's slow.
Yeah.
Oh, we're like 10 XP away from level 3.
Are you guys not doing milestones? You guys are doing actual XP counts?
Yeah, actual XP counts.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're
Yeah,
playing one of the
depends,
presets. Russ is DMing for us.
What's the preset?
Is it Lost Mines of Phandelven?
Oh, yeah.
Classic.
Phandelver.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. So yeah, dabbling in that, thoroughly enjoying
play
it.
that again for the
If
first time.
if you say the words monk and flute to any of the other Monday nights, they will start cringing.
A flute monk?
Yeah, we need more information.
Yeah.
At level 2, don't tell me you've already cross-classed into Bard.
No.
Oh my.
No. I think Russ's comment afterwards is, "You're not a bard. Don't try and do that."
Boo.
We were meant to sneak up on someone, and I tried to distract them instead, and then lured out 8 orcs and an ogre.
So is that because you have a flute, so you were trying to distract him with the flute?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So
I had
either if you lured them, his playing was either really good or really terrible.
Yeah. I'm going to guess the latter.
I have faith.
The other knights would probably agree.
I remember I had a monk who had a hand pan. You guys know
Oh,
what
yeah, I do.
And that's all he would do all session. He'd be like, "What are you doing?" Playing the hand pan.
Yeah,
all
okay.
session.
I had
So-
one of the campaigns, one of my friends played like a bard necromancer.
Oh,
and he had like
God.
bone pipes.
Yeah. Did he have backup dancers?
No. But
Don't give them ideas.
But yeah, and so he would just cast the most horrific spells by playing like his bone pipe. I remember having like a paladin standing next to me. He goes, I should be doing something about this.
There's something fundamentally wrong about this
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So yeah, enjoying that at the moment, just for something different. And then working on, I guess, what's been my main project for the last 2 years, which is Budapest Pocket Defenders.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that army has grown and grown and grown and grown.
As it does. Yeah.
Yeah,
With
well,
bolt
it's
action.
only like 120 odd infantry before I start adding extra teams. It's basically like 3 armies shoved into one now.
Yeah.
So yeah, been working on some. I finished those this week. Been working on some 3D print Hungarian vehicles from Lev, our resident terrain maker and absolute genius when it
That
comes to
guy's
setting up a table.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's spectacular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those have been a lot of fun to work with.
Who knew
for
having
something
a
different.
career in art makes you good at making stuff that looks good?
Yeah,
Who would've
absolutely.
thought?
I
Funny
had
that.
no idea. And then I met the dude and I was it all makes sense.
Yeah. Like seriously, he's got some beautiful stuff, and I've really enjoyed working on these 3D prints. They're just really different. Hungarian vehicles, as a rule of thumb, are really hard to come by, and a lot of the kits are from Europe, and then you're looking at sort of $50 to $60 AU plus postage.
Yeah.
Ow.
So that's been 2 Zrinis, 2 rubber baton trucks, and a Toldi 2A. So just finished those up.
I'm not along like I know what any of those things
Yeah.
are.
I was just about to say in the edit, and I hope I do this because I say this all the time. I'm going to put some photos up for people because I have no idea what any of those are.
Yeah, okay, fair call.
But that's what you're here for.
Absolutely. So just been working on those, sorting out more infantry. I think I've now come to the conclusion that if someone on our scene could set up a really big urban table, I've probably got enough to run an entire, like a day full narrative game with just the Axis side, and someone could supply a full-size table and Soviets.
You know who you are. You know who you are.
Oh, so you actually want to do Fortress Budapest?
Yeah.
That'd be amazing. We do. Yeah, we know someone who may be up to the challenge with that.
Yeah,
Who may have
absolutely.
actually already started an urban table.
Wouldn't
Yeah.
I mean, he's done one before.
Well, he's done an urban table before, but I think what I've seen so far might be the urban
Actually,
table.
that's true. He's been buying up a lot of the kits for.
This is a
tactics
good
and things like
segue
that.
into what someone else here is doing.
Well, not one of us.
Oh,
No.
okay.
One of our.
So, Tyler, what
mates.
have you been up to?
What have I been up to? Honestly, not much.
Yeah, life gets in the way.
Yeah.
Oh,
I've-
boohoo.
Yeah. No, I just had
Sorry.
my major project for uni that I'm working on for the next 6 months approved.
Yeah, okay. I hear ya.
Yeah,
That's hard work.
That's basically going
Fucking
to be my
students,
life.
am I right?
Don't play this game again. Yeah, so it's like I haven't picked up a paintbrush in ages.
Yeah.
But what I have been doing is working on my color theory and also looking at like where I want to go with paints.
Yeah,
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Because I'm so over Citadel.
Yeah.
Like it's gotten to a point now where like they're just not doing it for me. I don't know what
Yeah,
it
fair
is.
call.
I've just hit a level where it's just it's stupid to say I hit a level. I barely pick up a paintbrush like in the past month. But like I'm just getting really tired of not having what I thought I wanted.
In what regard when
So,
it comes to
yeah.
Citadel paints?
If you're not somebody who really understands color theory very, very well, like me, it can be really difficult to put some of that into words. My general experience has been that Citadel colors are very much designed for their sort of formulaic style of painting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And again, there's nothing wrong with that because when
And
you're
they're very
coming
bright.
well,
Saturated
I'll get to
colours,
that.
yeah.
Well, when you get to something like Albi and you want to bring somebody in, the best thing you can do is give them really robust step-by-step instructions that give you great results. And that's what the Citadel painting style is really good at doing.
Yeah.
You get your base color, you get your wash, you go back with your base color, and you maybe layer if you want to be creative, and then you edge highlight all of it and you're done.
Yes.
I think the challenge that a lot of people have, particularly when it comes to bolt action coming from Warhammer with the Citadel style, is that Warhammer paints generally don't use any kind of light.
Yeah.
Their painting recipe is not about light placement. It's just about getting
A finished miniature.
not just finished miniature, but just edge highlighting every edge.
Yeah.
And having like really bright, vibrant colors that are really well saturated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. If you look at their highlight colors, they will typically saturate before they desaturate.
Yes.
Which means they will make a pink more pink
Yes.
instead of adding white to make it brighter.
Yeah.
Whereas if you look at anything, I mean, if you're watching the video and you look at my shirt and you look at the different layers, it doesn't get more colorful. It actually desaturates.
Yeah.
It loses color.
Yeah.
When you get brighter and darker. And that's, I think, what a lot of people try to look for and achieve in bolt action. And if you look at like sort of the Vallejo ranges, you can find lots of desaturated, robust colors. There still are colors, but they're more desaturated. And so when you add the white and you add the browns and blacks to tone them up or down, you actually get a nice sort of gradual
Gradient.
shift.
Yeah, and also like that actually perfectly explains it because they also have shades.
Yeah.
Like what I've found with Citadel is that they've got base color, highlight, even higher highlight if you really want it.
For a particular color scheme.
Yeah, and that's it. Like once
Yeah.
you've got that, they move on to another color.
Yeah.
Which isn't bad. Like I still love some of the colors they have.
Yeah. All your pinks.
All my fucking things. All 18 of them at the moment.
That's commitment.
I love painting with pink.
And if you're wondering that you could never use pink in your miniatures, have I got a little secret for you?
Yeah, a little teaser there.
Stay tuned
for what you've got. Yeah, but it's that whole thing of like the colors they have are really good, but I feel like I'm missing something.
Yeah.
Also, not having dropper bottles.
Yep.
Never realized how annoying it was until I got a wet palette. And I don't know what it is, like trying to mix paint, because rather than, it's so stupid. Like, I feel like it's a waste of time talking about it, but basically trying to mix paint without a dropper bottle just like is a ball ache.
Yeah.
So it's, it's just a range of color thing and the feel of the paint as well. Like Citadel is very thick.
Yeah.
Very thick.
I actually think that the Vallejo paints are a lot thicker.
Really?
Yeah. I think if you, they're definitely higher viscosity. If you get a good mix and you put a drop of a Vallejo paint, it will actually form a dome.
Yeah.
Whereas a Citadel paint white.
Yeah.
I actually think the Vallejo ones are much higher viscosity. I think they're lower in pigment, but they're higher in binder. So binder is the actual polymer.
Yeah.
That makes it into an acrylic plastic when it dries. I think they're higher in polymer. And so when you thin them, they will thin better. Because I find that Citadel paints
they don't thin well.
Tend to really want to split on you if you just add a little bit too much water.
You put too much water and suddenly you're doing 4 thin coats.
Yeah. And you're still not getting an even color.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, I haven't been doing any painting, just a lot of theory of painting and trying to work up to, like I said in the last episode, Nurgle really scares me as a color scheme just because it's so like visceral and like real, I hesitate to say. Does that make sense? Like seeing all the organs and body parts and rust and...
Yeah, but there's a lot
gritty. I think gritty is the word I'm looking for.
Nurgle is one of those factions that if anyone who's not touched on 40k, which I'm assuming the majority of listeners will have.
Probably.
Nurgle is one of the chaos gods of corruption and decay.
Entropy.
Disease. Being the main sort of way that's manifested.
Absolutely. But there's a lot you can do with that outside of the official GW schemes.
Yeah.
There's a lot you can do if that's intimidating you to.
Well, see, here's the thing.
Things.
The other thing that's really intimidating me is something I talked in the last episode, and that it's Dan's baby. Like, this guy has spent way too much money on this and sold it to me for way too little money.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I feel, and I want to honor that
kind
of
legacy.
Absolutely. So I'm sitting here in this disgusting analysis paralysis of it all, just like scared to fuck it all up. But yeah, what have you been doing, Gorgon?
Interestingly, I think there's a lot of overlap between you and me. So I got very kindly, my partner got me an airbrushing booth for my birthday.
Nice.
At the start of July.
Yep.
And so I'm, as a result, very much a novice when it comes to airbrushing.
Yeah.
Now I had kind of considered, I was like, well, like I'm okay at painting. I'm not terrible. And an airbrush is a brush that uses air instead of bristles. I'm like, I don't want to sit here and say it shouldn't be too difficult. I went in anticipating that I was going to have some problems. But one of the things I didn't really appreciate was that you really do start from scratch.
Yeah.
Going from like manual brushing, I guess, to airbrushing. You really do start from scratch.
Yeah.
One of the things I had become unconsciously competent with my brush was things like how you hold it, how you use it, how you use it to mix stuff.
Yeah.
What kind of paint consistency you need. Now, I still struggle with paint consistency, and I think it's one of those things
everyone does.
Everyone does, and you will never not struggle with it. But I kind of got a feel for that's the right kind of consistency for what I'm about to do next, for this edge highlighter, for this layering and this base coloring of this wash, etc. I felt I got a pretty good handle on it. And then I thought a lot of that would translate to airbrushing, and it just didn't. It just didn't. I sat down with James Flane, who's been taking a lot of time out to really just level up my painting skills. And we just sat there for a couple hours, and it was just like literally just, this is the kind of paint consistency you need. This is how you hold it. This is how you spray it. This is how you clean it between paints. This is how you unjam it when you jam. And like, this is how you do a quick like fix, and here's how you do a proper clean and all that stuff. Just stuff that nobody teaches you about normal brushes that you kind of have to learn yourself or go and find out. Become twice as important with an airbrush. Because if you get a clog, you're dead.
I'm not sure if I talked about it on the show, but I used to own an airbrush, a cheap one I bought. And it was the best thing I have ever owned when it comes to hobby. I had just started my guardsman army.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so I had all these torsos and legs and stuff. And so I literally just got them on a bench and just like went through every single one. And you can get really, really particular about...
Pretty precise.
Yeah, really precise. Problem is, I didn't know any of, all that stuff about cleaning it between paints and all that. So I must have sprayed about 100 guardsmen going between reds, browns, and blacks.
Yeah.
And finally, this thing just like gives up the ghost. I don't know what happened to it, but it was like, clean me. And then, by then it was too late. I cleaned it and it was dead. But, it was like, it wasn't an expensive airbrush. I think it was like $40, but I'm like, I can't afford like $40 every time I want do this. So I've been very scared of airbrushes ever since.
Do you still have it?
No.
Okay. I was going to say, if you have it, I'd spent about 8 hours disassembling and reassembling several different airbrushes.
Yeah.
So I've got a pretty good handle about what the internals of an airbrush look like.
Yeah, no, I spent hours upon hours trying to get that thing to work again, like replacing the needle, the O-rings, like everything. And I couldn't work it out in the end. I think there was like a crack in the metal or something. But yeah, no, so good on you for going out and getting the right information, because like, what airbrush did you have? Do you have?
They're not Iwatas, no way. They're not Badgers either. They're Fengdas.
Okay.
I don't think they're particularly like, they're not like I think they're like a Mazda of an airbrush. Right. So like pretty good. But nobody's
functional.
Yeah, nobody's, it's not like the Toyota sort of reliable, and it's no way a Ferrari or anything like that. But if somebody's just like, oh yeah, nice, good, reliable. Yeah. I've actually got two because I got these secondhand. And the one that I thought was the good one was actually the bad one. And one that I thought was the really good one was actually the...
You got that from Jacob, didn't you?
Yeah. That's
also, rest in peace, Jacob and Dan, not here once again.
Yeah. Yes. We lied to everybody at the end of last episode. Yeah. Still healthy and hale.
Yeah, no. Yes. They will be making a comeback. They've just been very busy.
Jacob's in quarantine, isn't he? And Dan's just busy.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Life gets in the way of plastic tabletop hobbies.
Oh, what a shame.
Yeah, so I've been trying to really just get on sort of the airbrushing train, get a handle of it. One of the other things I continually struggle with, because I've got studio lights effectively. So when I'm painting, I can see every imperfection to a level you wouldn't believe. Yeah. And then I'll put the project down, I'll go to bed, and I'll go to work and stuff, come back the next day, and I'll look at it in daylight before I turn the lights on. I'm like, oh, that actually looks pretty good.
Yeah.
I actually like how that looks.
It's that whole forest from the trees kind of thing.
Yeah. And then like when you look at it, even if you look at it under good lighting, but not like really harsh, cool studio lights, you're just like, this is actually really good. I'm really proud of this. Yeah. And then you turn the lights back on, you're like, oh God, this is terrible.
Never mind.
So frustrating, isn't it?
Yeah. And so again, I'm finding that twice as difficult with airbrushing because, of course, I'm a complete novice. And so I'm putting all that stuff down, and I'm like, oh, that transition is terrible, and it's really garish, and that blue to green is garbage, and the gradient is too compressed, and all this sorts of stuff, and I get frustrated, and I sort of give up after a couple of hours, and I come back the next day and I'm like, there's no transition on that at all. That's just one color. Like, because when you take it out of the studio lights and you put it in, again, normal daylight, like I'm not talking like a dark room, decent daylight condition, you go, there is no transition.
Yeah, absolutely, no pop.
Because it's the 3 feet rule and all of the other stuff, and even when you look at it close, you're like, oh, I think there's 2 shades on there. And, meanwhile, the day before, I was like 8 colors layering it. Yeah, for sure. And so that's something, I don't have like a good intuitive feel for airbrushing yet, which is no surprise, because I think I've only got about 10 or 12 hours of brush time under my back. Absolutely. Compared to the several thousand I've probably got with a manual brush.
I found the same thing happening with my Custodes.
A
little while ago, I was dry brushing. So I did like 4 or 5 different like gold, like dark golds to bright gold, and then dark silver to bright silver. I must have had like 5 different paints on these things. I stand back, I'm like, I can see 2 paints on here. I was so miffed at myself for spending so much time for so little effort. Do you have an airbrush?
No, I don't have an airbrush. It's something I've looked at and gone, you know what, it's all just too hard. I'm not a particularly patient painter. Right, so I like to get in and get stuff done. And get an army on the table. Also to a nice standard. It needs to look all right.
Ironically, you are describing the perfect case for as airbrush.
This is the only reason I want an airbrush. I'm like, I know I can paint shit fast.
Yeah. And the other thing is I often only have time to paint at night. So pulling an airbrush out, and I don't have a stack of space to paint in.
Yeah, sure.
So it's pulling an airbrush out I'm actually not going to have an to utilize an airbrush.
And compressors can get a bit annoying.
Yeah, absolutely.
I found that the fan on my extractor hood is like 8 times louder than the compressor. Really? Yeah, a lot of people complain about the noise of the compressor, but it's actually not too bad. Like, don't get me wrong, it's noisy. Yeah. But like a washing machine is louder.
Yeah. When when I bought my airbrush, right, I didn't buy a compressor with it. I just bought the airbrush.
Did you have like a bellows?
I wish.
I can just imagine like Tyler on the other end, like breathing into it.
Just like those old spray, like handprints.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, with the straw. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, because I was still living at home at the time. It's a couple of years ago now. And I was like, hey, do we have a air compressor? To my parents? And they're like, yeah, we have one to do sand blasting. So they blast sand on furniture and stuff to clear it. Yeah. Where they own a furniture company and do restorations and stuff like that. And so I'm like, oh, cool. Didn't think anything of it. Ordered my airbrush. Came, like 2 weeks, a month later, whatever. And I'm like, cool. I'm so excited to use this. Went to my dad. I'm like, hey, Dad, where's that air compressor? He's like, oh, it's in the garage. Let me show you. We walk down. I'm like, I can't see it on this bench anywhere. He's like, no, it's under the bench. And it was this gigantic fucking industrial thing. And so I plug it in. I'm like, yeah, all right. I mean, that'll work. It'll do its job. And it did. The problem was there was a leak in the hose or something. And so every time I opened it up, it's this thing that's like, because it's trying to get to a really high KPI.
PSI.
PSI, I think.
Yeah.
KPI. It's the
Key performance indicator. Not
Well, PSI would be a key performance indicator.
Yeah, it's technically correct.
Yes, but also very wrong.
Yeah, very wrong. The point of the story is, so I'm sitting there and painting this thing. I've got this air compressor this big. And I'm only able to paint at night because I've got school and work and stuff. So I get home, I'm like, I need to get through these guardsmen, sit down, turn on the compressor. It's like, and then I shut it off and
middle of suburbia.
Oh yeah, man. The amount of times I've had people just banging on the garage door, from the house, and a couple of times you hear through the garage door, shut up, next door or something. Yeah. So.
Were you just catapulting your guardsmen across the garage with 60 psi?
No, because you can set the output.
Yeah, sure.
But there was definitely a moment when I first got it where they're like, "Oh, test it on your hand" in all the YouTube videos. So I was like, and I sprayed it. My hand just crashes onto the table, and I was like,
don't do that on a fragile GW Mini.
I'm not sure where I was going with that. I think I just wanted to share the trauma of having a gigantic compressor, but
I'm grateful that you felt safe enough to share this story.
Thank you. My name is Tyler. Hi, Tyler. No. What
Airbrush Abusers Anonymous?
Not so anonymous anymore. Did you have anything else? What have you been working on with said airbrush?
I've been trying to get my Necromunda guys done, and I think I'm just trying to get too clever. Yeah. I think is my problem.
Yeah, keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah. Thanks.
Sorry. The abuse is mounting.
Yeah. No, it's just because I like boring colors. I like boring color schemes. And I'm trying to get all creative and use colors that I don't normally use.
Yeah, for sure.
And try to come up with all the stuff that I don't normally like. And I'm like, well, I just happen to like gray. All right. I just happen to like gray.
Of course, he's a US player. Browns, grays.
And olive drab.
Yeah.
Which is not a green because it has no blue in it. It's yellow and black. What else do I need in my life?
Okay.
He's been doing too much color theory.
A can of worms for another time. That's fine though. Although, not although. I've seen your Space Marine that you've been doing gray transitions on. Dude, it looks mint.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it looks really
I'm not
good.
sitting there that's only gray. I'm like, oh, that's sick.
There's lots of definition and transition. And
Thank
it
you,
looks
thank you.
really, really good.
Yeah. And 12 hours of work with a manual brush, it would have been 15 minutes with an airbrush.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would have taken me longer to set up my airbrush and clean it than it would to do it with an airbrush. And it would look better with the airbrush.
Yeah.
But there's a few details, you can't get the angles right.
Yeah.
With an airbrush, it's more of
it's a broad scale tool.
Unless you're painting Morty or something.
And that was the thing. I was like, I wanted to do that. I wanted to teach myself how to do light placement.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so Zenithal the miniature, and when I'm painting it, I'm actually looking at the Zenithal Prime.
Yeah.
I've got a photo of it on my phone next to it.
Oh, nice.
Because that's the only way that I know to place light.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, what reference point do I have?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the main drawback on the way that I did it was I zenithal from straight above. And so it looks like there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but as you can imagine, it's only noon for a very small amount of time in the day, and the rest of the day the light is coming in from an angle.
So he's standing under a light as he barges through a door somewhere.
So
it's Necromunda. They're always under top lights.
So like you usually go for 15, 20 degrees, or maybe even up to 45 off, and that just makes the light placements more interesting. But I was like, I don't need interesting. I need to be able to do it. And so I just went from the top, and
it's also like a good idea then to like just on the side thinking about it, because like if you're turning a miniature on the table, it automatically gives it 360 degree of light because you can face it anyway. Whereas if it's
straight above,
it's never going to.
It doesn't look right. Your brain just sort of goes, no, that's something's not right about that. But I think it's fine.
If it's a learning project, who cares? Provided you've actually learned something.
That's it.
And so there's still quite a few things I need to work through on that project. I've done that. That's technically, like, from a scale modeling perspective, you would consider that to be the base coat of the armor now complete.
That's messy.
Just because scale modeling is not just about the base color, it's also about modulation and light placement before you do any weathering and chipping and stuff. So then now that I've done that, I'm going to do the face, the leather, the hair, which I don't know how to do. I'm just going to give it a go. Look up some tutorials. And then I'll chip the armor, get some dust and weathering and stuff on there, and then I'll call the project done. And if a painting competition comes up and it fits, I'll submit it, get some feedback, whatever.
You're pretty good with faces these days.
Yeah, well, we've got Iron Cygnet coming up, haven't we?
Yeah, I'm doing something very different for Iron Cygnet.
Yeah, okay.
It's actually like a repeat of what I'm doing last year for Iron Cygnet. But so last year I did an M10 on the beach. And when I finished that project, like, I was looking up M10 because I was talking to somebody about it, but I didn't have it with me. And I was like, I'll show you what a picture of an M10 looks like. And then I saw the most incredible reference photo for the first time. And I was like, why didn't I do this? And so I'm going to do that this year instead. And because I'm a scientist, N equals 3. M10 last year, M10 this year, same scale. And then hopefully everybody will be like, hopefully it'll be like, that looks a lot better. Look at what you can do when you get the same or a similar kit 1 year later.
Absolutely. That'd be really cool to see. And I'm working on a couple of projects there going, I've got no idea how to paint something for a competition, so I will be picking your brains.
For sure. I'm not the person's brains you want to be picking, because I walked away empty-handed from Iron Cygnet. I got a lot of good feedback, but
but if you win, it doesn't matter if you win something. You've still had that experience as a newcomer.
It'll be fine,
and that's really valuable.
Hopefully that's an open invitation to all of our listeners.
Absolutely.
If you guys, so there's 2 open invitations there. One of them is, of course, if you
pick Fortune's brain.
If you ever want to talk to me about anything, hit me up. I'm always open. HMG is pretty open. We love it when people hit us up on our DMs and stuff, and set them on fire. I know, Jackson, you like to do that a lot, which is fantastic. I mean, we love it because obviously when you're sitting here now, you get a feel for it. You're kind of just talking into the void.
Absolutely.
And you don't know if what you're saying is any good. And then people come back and be like, real good episode.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so no, because I'm that annoying person who messages you after every episode going, I liked this, I liked that. Good episode. Great to see more content.
Yeah, nothing annoying about that. And then the other part is, the other open invitation is, honestly, all of our listeners, there are some fantastic painters in the bolt action scene. And I don't think your work gets enough credit. And I'm not just talking about a couple of people. I'm not just talking about there are.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of other guys in there who are really good army painters as well.
Yeah, there's at least another half dozen guys.
We've got a phenomenal standard of painting.
Yeah, we absolutely do. And honestly, you guys, Iron Cygnet that's coming up, I think it's October this year.
Yeah,
October 2021. I don't recall the exact date, and they're going to hate me for it.
It's patched onto a OBSEC event, isn't it?
Yeah, that's ringing a bell.
Yeah.
So the Iron Cygnet is an open painting competition. So it's split into 3 categories. One of them's under 18s. One of them's not won a painting competition before, and the third one's won a painting competition before. You could submit whatever you want. You can submit a single model. You can submit a diorama. You can submit a scale model. You can submit an army. You can submit terrain. Whatever you want to submit, you can submit, and it will be judged on its own merit, on its own standards.
Yeah.
And so I would highly encourage everybody to do it, even if you don't think you're actually. especially if you don't think your painting's up to
There is no way I'm ever submitting anything to Iron Cygnet.
If I'm doing it, you're doing it.
No.
I just went through this. There's 3 categories, Tyler, just for your benefit. Under 18s, people who've never won a painting competition before,
yes,
and people who have.
Yeah.
So you will be judged on its own merit.
Yeah, no, I understand.
And you will get incredible feedback.
Yes.
You will get personalized feedback, and they will tell you all of the things that you can do to improve.
Besides, it's a cool sort of day to just come and meet people, hang out, get to know people.
Yeah, some of the people, I talked about this in a previous episode. I was talking to this good dude for 45 minutes and turned out I'd been following on Instagram for a year.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you're... And he's like, yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
And super cool dude.
Yeah.
So, yeah, honestly, I would.
It's weird.
I'll pay for your submission.
Oh,
I'll do it. Yeah, that's the other thing. You can submit as many models as you like.
Mm. It's weird, like, because I'm
cool. All 160 my Budapest Pocket Defenders.
If you want, it's going to cost you 160 times 5.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
So, no, like, it's weird because, like, I'm normally very much fuck yeah, I'll do it. I'll do just about. I painted a list like hot pink. Like I'm down.
You should submit the WAF-M.
I should. I'm down for whatever because I'm all of the above. But
don't hit up Tyler in his DMs. I know I said it was an open invitation earlier to hit us all up, but don't hit us.
You might get more than you bargained for.
Yeah, no, it's like, but there's just something about painting that for me, it's a blockage. And I really, now that I think about it, I really should submit something to get over that kind of hurdle where...
And Iron Cygnet is the best place to do it.
Yeah, because I sit there and like I'm in the WOMP, West Oz Miniature Painters...
Facebook group.
Yeah, and they're the guys who run it.
And their Discord.
Yeah.
And far out, some of the stuff they pen out, they're like, oh, just whip this up. And you're like...
Yeah, they're cringing going, I wish I could do that.
Yeah, it's just like existential dread kind of thing. But I think it really comes down to... And I've said this enough for myself, like... It really comes down to only judging it based on your past
Correct
stuff rather than on other people.
Yeah, because you have to remember that they would have spent more time on the base color of that one model than you would have spent on an entire army. And that's not a criticism, but you just have to respect that.
It's a different style of painting.
It's just different.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If you spend 120 hours on 160 models, that is a phenomenal level of efficiency.
Yeah.
If you spend 120 hours on a base coat, that's a phenomenal level of detail you can pursue because because you have the time to follow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the same principle. So it's like, yes, the models that you see, particularly, the admins and the moderators of WOMP post, yes, their standard is incredible because that's the standard they set on themselves.
Yeah.
It's not a standard they put on anybody else.
No.
They go, I for a fact know that one of those guys wants to not just do Golden Demon and win it. He wants to get the Slayer Sword. So the Slayer Sword, for those who don't know, is the competition amongst Golden Demon winners.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and like,
it's a big goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're never going to get there if you don't have that as your goal.
Yeah.
If you set your goal to finish a bolt action army, you cannot hold yourself to the same standard because you're not trying to achieve the same thing. So to the people who go, oh, why would I post anything because that's so much better? You guys are painting for two completely different purposes.
Absolutely.
If you're painting to get stuff done or to get paint in a brush, perfect. You've done it. Post it. That's a proud something to be proud of.
And the crazy thing is, I sit here and I've talked with almost every single one of them in person and know they're great guys, and they'll sit there and
Super
be like, that's so cool. It's literally all in my head. Anyway, before we get too deep into my head, my neuroses.
Okay,
well, we've already done Gortron. We could do yours as well.
Next episode.
Oh, no, we've already done airbrush.
Something for people to come back for.
That's it. You got to have that hook.
Yeah.
No, let's get on to the real, the main topic of today. And the reason
this is our outflank section.
Yes, our outflank section. The reason that we have Jackson on board here.
Not just because he's a great guy.
Yeah. I mean, we the funny thing is,
Tyler.
we asked you to come on, and I was like, hey, you want to come on? And it's like, yep. What are we talking about? Like, we'll work it out.
It was like, okay, I'm going to work out what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's it.
So just so you know, that is precisely how every episode goes.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't want you to think that we just said, oh, Jackson, you're the guest, you figure it out. We literally go, I'll be like, hey guys, when are we recording next? And we'll figure out a date. And then somebody will be like, so Gortron, what are we talking about? I'm like, no, hang on.
And like one of us will fling an idea. It's like, yeah, let's do that. Just because, like, I don't know, we all get a bit
absolutely
funny about it. But we have you here to talk about something very specific that you've mentioned a couple of times already. Your Budapest Pocket Defenders list.
Yes. So, for those who don't know, that's a list themed around the Siege of Budapest and the Axis forces trapped in the city fighting against the Soviets. That happens in very late 1944 through to 1945. It's about a 3-month period. Don't quote me on that.
So it would have been winter. Days.
Yeah, it's basically same time Battle of the Bulge was happening.
Yeah.
Plus a little bit extra.
Sure.
That was 105 days. So what's that?
Yeah, that's 3 and a bit months.
3 and a bit months.
Change.
Yeah.
I think I think the first Soviet troops into the city rock up on Christmas Day.
Oh wow.
And it
Merry
feeds
Christmas.
through into March.
So is that Santa Claus? Just communism.
Yeah, they are wearing red. Very different motives. So for anyone who hasn't seen this book, this is the Fortress Budapest book campaign supplement that came out about 2 and a bit years ago.
Okay.
And that's Brian Cook's work, I believe. I would rate this as the best supplement released by Warlord.
Okay.
Well done, Brian Cook.
Yeah.
Is he the same guy who did the US D-Day sectors, or was that a different guy?
No, I think that's a different guy.
Okay.
So
also phenomenal book. We'll get to that one soon.
Yeah, that needs to be covered. The newest campaign books are awesome. This I've played through quite a substantial amount of the scenarios in it.
Okay.
I've played through a couple of the different lists in it. I've got plans to play and build lists for some of the other selectors in there.
Okay.
It's becoming quite the addiction. But the main focus in this book is obviously the fighting leading up to and slightly after the siege of the city.
Yeah. Okay.
And the majority of the content revolves around supplementing the Hungarian list.
Yeah.
That I would actually rate as a better list than Germans.
Ooh.
That might be a contentious subject.
So,
but yeah.
Everybody who just heard that, I just want to hope that you're all sitting down.
Yeah.
We're going to give you a chance to lower your blood pressure. For those of us uninformed...
This is my opinion, not the opinion of HMG.
Germany's utility in bolt action has some very strong opinions. So we're just going to give everybody a chance to lower their blood pressure and take a few deep breaths and before you write some crazy comments on our YouTube channel. For those uninformed, like myself, could you give us a bit of history about Hungary's involvement in World War II?
Yeah.
So my understanding is that alongside with Romania, individual infantry divisions were raised from Romania and Hungary and used on the Eastern Front. That's about it. And I don't know how true that is because that was from Unity of Command.
I can help out here because I've been doing my research because I was like, Hungary.
I've got notes of their entire involvement.
Never mind. I'm going to shut up.
For those who wonder why I've probably done far too much research on this, I am actually a history student at uni.
Yes. This is your literal thing.
Yeah. So if we're talking about Hungary, actually a lot of the minor powers, it's probably necessary to discuss the interwar period as well. On some scale.
Of course.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So Hungary is obviously formed after the breakup of the Austro-Hungarian Empire at the end of World War I.
Could have guessed that.
Yes. Now they have the Treaty of Trianon forced upon them. So it's like the Treaty of Versailles.
Right. Okay.
It basically strips large parts of Hungarian land and gives it to the formation of other states, particularly Yugoslavia and let me check my notes.
Bordering states, sure.
Yeah, bordering states. Yugoslavia and
Romania.
No, well, Romania gets land. They're actually Hungarians and Romanians hate each other.
Yes. I actually found out a really interesting tidbit. Even while, so this is to give you time to look at your notes, by the way. Even while Hungarian troops were on the Eastern Front, and they were being pushed back into Hungary. Hungary still had troops on the border with Romania. They hate each other that much.
Oh,
they're
absolutely. Funny fact, and
off.
we'll get to this. The Don Offensive, there was 3 expedition forces sent by Allied powers into Russia.
Yeah.
The Italians, the Romanians, and Hungarians.
Yeah.
And when the Germans deployed them to defend the Don River line around Stalingrad, they put the Hungarians on one side, the Italians in the middle, and the Romanians on the other side, because they couldn't trust the Romanians and the Hungarians not to try and kill each other.
I love that so much.
So it's Yugoslavia and Czechoslovakia. And these states are fairly diametrically opposed into a period to Hungary.
Yeah.
Hungary has a brief dabble with communism in the Hungarian Soviet Republic.
I dabble, Your Honor.
So is that were those? Because a lot of the times in those treaties, those lines that are drawn in the sand are completely irrespective of ethnic and cultural.
Yes,
quite arbitrary.
and that's the main problem.
Right. Okay. Because
yeah.
my understanding is that, of course, the Czechoslovakian and the Yugoslavian ethnic groups are quite different to the Hungarian ethnic groups. But of course, that would not have been respected when those boundaries were drawn.
Absolutely. And then you end up with a fairly substantial amount of Hungarians trapped in Romania.
Yeah.
As well.
And Romanians, and Hungarians don't get on. I actually know people who fled Cold War Romania because they were Hungarian.
Jesus.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's basically...
Wasn't that long ago, Tyler?
Yeah. It stabilizes sort of into the Kingdom of Hungary. And that's
okay.
under the regent Admiral Miklas Horthy.
Okay.
Hungary actually no longer has a navy, so he's an admiral of basically a few river vessels.
I love that.
And he's standing in for
Powerful.
the Hungarian.
Regent, sure.
He's the regent.
Why did they go with admiral? You may not know this.
I don't
but
know.
Why admiral, not like general? Why not just because they don't have an?
I have no idea.
Nah.
Because he was an admiral for the Austro-Hungarian Empire.
Oh,
He was probably
okay.
married to somebody more important.
Maybe.
I don't know. I'd have to do more
related
reading.
to somebody
He's,
more important.
Yeah, he's actually quite a significant and contentious figure in modern day Hungary.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
So Hungary sort of goes through into a period, and it's increasingly conservative and traditionalistic.
Did the treaty also put limits on their military material?
Yes, it did. Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, I should have covered that as well.
Well,
It put substantial limits on what they could do, and a lot of the regions given away to other countries are actually fairly substantial parts of Hungary's economy.
yeah.
And their raw mineral resources, and
They could only have 35,000 in the standing military.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
it's basically it's tiny.
Mm.
There's this big growing of, I guess, traditionalism, and you get this strong impression from my reading that they're trying to basically hold the country together because things are really bad, economically. Hungary's quite an anti-Semitic country in the era anyway,
Right.
but they become increasingly anti-communist and anti-fascist as well, to the point that the fascist leader of the Iron Party spends multiple stints in prison.
Okay.
Jeez.
And they do their best to hunt down the communists, and they impose some pretty heavy sanctions on the Jews.
So the Arrow Cross Party were the Communist Party in the country?
No, they're the fascist party.
They're the fascist party. Okay.
So actually not all that, the anti-communism science, actually not all that different to the kind of prevailing
Eastern
theme.
Europe in general.
Well, not just
and
Eastern
Northern
Europe and
yeah.
Western Europe.
Yeah.
Or actually almost globally at that point. My understanding of the interwar period, one of the main sort of dividing lines was where you fell on communism. And a lot of countries either went towards it or went away from it.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty big divide.
And I think the brief dabbling from what I've read with communism, they had like a minor state for like a year.
Right, okay.
That turned them completely against it.
Yeah,
Like, it's the extreme of, we are not communist.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So when they sort of then start to develop ties with Nazi Germany, because they can organize trade agreements with them, and they're struggling to organize trade agreements with their neighbors because their neighbors hate them.
Yeah.
And half the neighbors are probably leaning towards communism.
Yeah, sort of. Yes, no.
Romania, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia.
There's strong communist movements in most of those.
Yeah.
But
So
Romania becomes particularly fascist.
Yeah.
So they're all like communist leaning. Hungary's leaning away from it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So they sort of they start to tie themselves to Nazi Germany really from the start once the Nazis come to power, because it's an opportunity, and they're very invested in trying to rebuild their nation back to what it was.
Yeah. And like Germany has so much industry and all that jazz, and like
post
Hungary
Great
would
Depression,
have lost it all.
Not really.
Yeah.
That was I am interpreting here that I feel like Hungary and Nazi Germany probably saw each other as two similar countries going through similar challenges and trying to rebuild their nations?
Yes and no.
Okay.
There's a great deal of what seems like opportunism. Jump on the bandwagon of whoever can support you to rebuild your nation.
That makes sense.
To the point that at various points, the Allies refer to them as the Jackal of Europe.
Right. Okay.
God damn.
Yeah.
So they basically ended up joining the Axis powers out of necessity.
Yeah, it's very much seems to be necessity. They align themselves with Hitler because they're anti-communist, and Hitler seems like the next best option. Interestingly enough, when the Germans,
well, that was the opinion of Hungary at the time.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, sorry.
Just hearing
Should have
that
phrased
Monday,
that.
I was like, oof.
Yeah, rephrase that. When Germany moves into Czechoslovakia, they get a small part of the territory.
Oh, yeah.
When Germany invades Poland, they actually refuse access through to roads leading through Hungary to invade Poland.
Right.
So there's actually quite a substantial number of Polish refugees who escape, and military troops and government officials who escape through Hungary.
Because they have like a really strong tie.
They have very strong ties.
Yeah.
And
I wonder. So this is a very like niche little fact, but one of the things that gets covered up by German generals in post-war memoirs is how well planned the invasion of Poland was.
Oh, yeah,
because that was one of the things that they were on trial for. Was that the invasion of Poland was basically as an international incident was not legitimate because they didn't declare war. They basically just invaded, which is a big no-no.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the German generals wrote in their memoirs that they had no idea that the invasion was coming until it happened. But of course, all of the documents and all the other stuff
and
proved
the false
it wrong.
flag operations.
Well, they weren't actually that false flag. It was just let's just do a whole bunch of troops. We're just on exercises next to the Polish border.
Oh, I meant more about like Polish prisoners of war being shot on the border and then put guns there, and it's like, oh, they attacked us first.
Sure, yeah. So I wonder how much of those plans of invading Poland Hungary was actually aware of.
That'd definitely be interesting to discuss because there's very strong "you are not coming through our territory."
Yeah. Okay.
And it's interesting that happens because like they continue to side with the Germans. The Germans convince the Romanians to give a bit of territory, Transylvania, back to the Hungarians. But later, when the Germans in I think it's 1941 invade Yugoslavia, the Prime Minister shoots himself.
The Hungarian?
No, the Hungarian Prime Minister shoots himself. They've said, no, we can't do this. And they'd actually signed a non-aggression pact with the Yugoslavians.
Right, okay.
And he went, no, I can't be a part of this. So he ends up shooting himself.
Man of principle.
Yeah, and then the Hungarian army invades Yugoslavia and takes back Hungarian land.
This is the thing that you hear about all the time. It's like, there's no point me having principles because they're just going to replace me with somebody who doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, you got to be true to yourself.
Absolutely.
No comment on whether or not you need to go that far.
Yeah.
But the one thing you can say about the Hungarian Prime Minister, at least he was an individual of principle.
Well, to the point that the Churchill actually kept a seat in Parliament, in the British Parliament, to commemorate him. He kept a seat empty for him.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting because they keep tying themselves closer and closer to the Germans, and the Romanians are doing the same.
Right.
And then they start competing.
Okay.
So they send a token force into the invasion of Russia.
Hungary does.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then, Romania sends a larger force. And then the Hungarians go, that can't happen. We're going to send more. And this tiny little, force grows to like 200,000 men.
Holy
Jesus.
And for those who are unaware, Romania, for example, provides the next largest number of Axis troops after the Germans.
Yeah.
And the Hungarians are like a little bit behind that.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It's a huge amount of troops.
Massive swathes of the Eastern Front is held by Romanians.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Hungary.
Particularly second-line positions.
I
knew it was those. Like, I knew they were in Eastern Front. I didn't realize, I thought Italy would have provided more than...
No, not at all. I think Italy's expeditionary force is large, but it doesn't even remotely compare.
And also, the invasion of Italy is occurring at the same time as the Eastern Front.
True.
41.
Yeah.
So the Italians
and the fighting in North Africa.
And the Italians are busy.
Yeah.
They are busy. And also, it's easier to get troops from Hungary and Romania east than it is to get Italian troops east.
For sure. Absolutely.
So,
okay, that makes more sense.
And I know that Romanian infantry divisions and Hungarian infantry divisions held a lot of second line positions.
Yes.
Particularly, or flanks that the Germans didn't expect to be hit.
Yeah.
But I don't know what happened. I don't know if they actually kind of held the Soviets. I don't know what regard the troops were held in.
The troops were sort of, they're good forces for Hungary because they're their expeditionary force. Yeah. But the Germans consider them second line. So they do get involved in a fair bit of anti-partisan and holding ground
so more
behind
like,
the lines.
Or like dragoons and military police.
But I have heard, though, that like they, I can't remember, I think it was Stalingrad, when they were falling back, they were holding one of the flanks. And they were the
that's
only
the Don River
ones,
offensive.
Yeah. They were the only ones who held. Everyone else fell back.
Yeah, so they actually keep committing more and more troops and stuff in. But their equipment is pretty... They're a minor nation. It's second rate.
Yeah.
And eventually, when when the Germans launch the attack on Stalingrad, they will end up all those units, so Italian, Hungarian, and Romanian, will end up holding the flank along the Don River.
Yeah.
And
so
then
were they encircled along with the army group?
Parts of it were.
Okay.
I'm more interested in the late war stuff
and
the pre-war stuff.
Sure.
From what I've read, and just this is very brief compared to the knowledge that you've obviously accrued, but like they held until both of their flanks, which were flanking forces, fell, and then they were like, "Fuck,"
and they lost the overwhelm. Like very few men came home from that.
They lost. The Second Army lost something like 85% of men didn't come back.
Yeah, it's huge.
Did the Soviets have much? Did they realize they were fighting Hungarians and Romanians, and did they rate them well?
From what little reading I've read, they kind of went, we're going to hit the second line formations that are mostly with Panzer 38Ts.
Yeah, okay.
The infantry's fairly capable, but it's very light on weaponry. 13 men squads, maybe an LMG and an SMG shoved in there.
Sure, okay.
Very little anti-tank. And a lot of the breakthroughs from what I've read were achieved pretty heavily by Soviet armored divisions.
Well, that's also the Soviet deep operation doctrine.
Exactly.
Yeah. Is you use tanks to punch real deep.
Looking at some of the Fortress Budapest stuff, it's literally holding the infantry back until the tanks arrived because they can't pierce a T-30.
34?
34. Thank you.
76 and 85.
I was like, 37. That's not right.
No. So that sort of continues, and they're rebuilding after 1943 back in Hungary because obviously now the Germans are on the defensive.
Yeah.
And they start making these negotiations like under the table with the Western Allies because they're still very much diametrically opposed to the communists.
Sure.
But they start doing these under table negotiations.
And their alliance with Nazi Germany was a matter of necessity and opportunity.
It's an opportunistic. We're going to take advantage of this. Then Hitler catches wind of it, and he gives Horthy an ultimatum in like March 1944.
Is this the head of state?
So Horthy, the regent.
Yep.
And says, you know what? You can either cooperate with us, or we will just occupy the country. What
year was that?
March 44.
That's pretty bold of Germany.
Yeah.
to say that.
And Horthy goes, yeah, okay. This is actually, for those who are looking at the recently released Panzer Lehr troops by Warlord and the upcoming War Games Atlantic, this is actually, this occupation, which isn't actually an occupation, it's just stationing of German troops in Hungary after this discussion. That's actually their first deployment. Is Panzer Lehr. Okay. Just fun fact for anyone looking at those miniatures. So then in summer 44, the Hungarians start talking with the Soviets.
Yeah.
This didn't work with the Western Allies. We'll sign an armistice, and Hitler catches wind of that as well. And the day it's announced, he just enacts this master plan of Hitler enacts the master plan of we're going to take over the country. There's a specific name for that operation. I can't remember it. So they seize control of the country.
Yeah, sure.
As we mentioned earlier, as I mentioned before the show began, if you guys are going to run another G&T special, God help us.
How dare you?
Do it about Otto Skorzeny, because this is when they take control of the country. Otto Skorzeny leads an operation to kidnap Nicholas Horthy, the regent's son, and they smuggle him out rolled up in a carpet.
Oh yeah.
So there might be his exploits might
Everything's been done before, Tyler. There's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah, absolutely. So they take control. The Germans take control of the country.
Yeah.
They remove Horthy from power, force him to abdicate. And then they impose a fascist state on the country by supporting the puppet government of the Arrowcross Fascist Party, led by Ferenc Szalasi. I probably mangled that name.
That's fine. We do plenty of that on here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speak for yourself, Tyler.
Yeah, that's what I am.
So yeah, they take over the country, and that's really as the Soviets are rolling into town.
Yeah, okay.
And then the fighting sort of ranges back from the Romanian border in Transylvania, back across the Great Hungarian Plain to the defensive positions of the Attila line outside Budapest, which is really just a massive anti-tank ditch with a few emplacements around it.
Oh my god.
As Hungarians were not paying attention to anti-tank doctrine.
What didn't the Hungarians take up positions along the Danube at some point?
Yeah. Well, the Danube flows through Budapest, so they sort of had this position that went around outside Budapest. And then they sort of kept falling back to outside the city, and then the Soviets outflank the city. They surround the city. They fight in there for 3 months, or 3 and a bit months.
Yeah.
The main thing is Hitler declares it a Festung city, so a fortress city.
Yeah.
There's a lot of SS trapped in that city, and that's why it stands and fights for the most part.
So, yeah, very briefly, see if I can remember all of the details of a Festung city, or Festungsstadt. It's basically you put the town under rule of the military.
Yes.
So the highest ranking military officer becomes the governor, and everybody in that city has to do something to help defend the city. So that might not be active fighting, but it'll be creating fortifications, supplying munitions, being a runner for the military, whatever. It doesn't matter. Everything that you were doing in the city is now irrelevant. The only thing that matters
is hold that city.
Is contributing to the defense of the city.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember also hearing that the Soviet general at the time, Field Marshal, is that what they went with? Whatever the ranking system is over there. The Soviet commander was told by Stalin he had to take the city in 5 days.
Yes,
and it took him 105 days.
He didn't do that.
145 days?
105.
Oh.
What happens is that when the Hungarians are forced to renege on the armistice with the Russians, basically
forced to renege on an armistice is a really great way of saying we're going to invade Russia with Germans.
Or the Russians go, no, we're going to continue to invade. Stalin declares that the army
self-defense at that point.
Yeah. Stalin declares that he's going to. He tells his troops to treat the Hungarians like you would treat a German.
Yeah, and the Soviets were not exactly
very nice,
devoid of war crimes themselves.
Yeah. So that actually it gets really ugly.
War is
really
hell.
Quick.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, then they've got the Yalta conference coming up.
Okay.
So really they're trying to establish their post-war boundaries. So Stalin tells his generals that you are to capture Hungary completely. That's going to become part of the Soviet sphere of influence. You need to do it in 5 days. Yeah.
So it wasn't just Budapest in 5 days. It was
Hungary.
Oh,
it was Budapest in particular.
Yeah.
But you're then going to use that as a linchpin to just break through the rest of the country.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I mean,
once that's gone, that's kind of...
Yeah. And also, one of the things is like, once you capture a capital city, it becomes like really difficult to keep the rest of the troops fighting.
Yeah.
You saw the same thing. France was
Paris.
But that one was different for a couple of key reasons about France's defense. But well, basically once you capture the capital city, it's really difficult to get the thing to not capitulate.
Absolutely.
So, and as I understand it, Budapest is kind of on the west end of Hungary, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, down the
It's
roughly. My geography is pretty hit and miss.
I'm just trying to remember if you're advancing from the east and you've captured Budapest,
northeast coming down.
You've conquered most of the country by the time you've got
Budapest. Pretty substantial portion of it.
Yeah.
And they basically the Soviets attack it using generic Soviet tactics.
Yeah.
And they capture like there's 700 city blocks. They capture like 70 over the course of like a month and a half. And then you know what, this isn't working. We're losing troops too quickly.
Yeah.
They actually then start re-implementing tactics they used in Stalingrad.
Right. Okay.
And that speeds up the conquest of the rest of the city.
Why did they not just start with those tactics?
I was about to say, what are the tactics used in Stalingrad that they didn't use beforehand?
Basically mass assault troops. So your urban assault platoons are pretty heavily characterized by basically everyone being armed with a submachine gun
or a flamethrower.
Lots of short range, like close range, high explosive. So use of light howitzers, lots of machine guns,
grenades, oversupplying grenades.
Yeah. That kind of thing. I think it's the Sturm troops. I think there's actually stats for them in the Stalingrad book.
Yeah.
They're like specialized formations of like hand-picked men who will go in and just take a position. And they're armed with sharpened shovels and.
Oh yeah, right. Those guys. Yeah.
Yeah. And they start using those pretty heavily. And they end up taking the city. The fighting in Hungary sort of continues. And they've taken the city, captured it. They attempt to make a breakout attempt. I think like 800 men make it out. They try and like leg it out of the city, and most of them just get captured.
Yeah.
And most of the SS are executed on the way. Like something like 30,000 8th SS Florian Gaia men start the Hungarian campaign, and 800 make it home.
Fortress Budapest.
Yeah. It's pretty brutal. And then they have Operation Spring Awakening to try and recapture the city. That's Germany's last offensive, and that's why the Hungarian campaign is often referred to as the death of the SS, because 8 SS divisions are destroyed in the fighting, and then they retreat back into Austria.
I didn't know that. I didn't know it was called the death of the SS. That's really cool.
Yes, well, there's the 2 SS cavalry regiments in the city. So that's the 22nd Maria Theresa, 8th is the Florian Gaia. Some of these are second. They're sort of semi-second rate. And then you've got all the units that participated in the SS units that participated in Battle of the Bulge.
Yeah.
They're actually redeployed straight after the end of that fighting to prepare for Operation Spring Awakening.
God damn.
So Totenkopf, Viking,
Yeah.
Hohenstaufen, LASS. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that German name.
Just to give everybody an appreciation of just how desperate Germany was by the time their counteroffensive in Battle of the Bulge kicked off. I think a lot of people don't realize. Like they were like, oh, it's the big German counterattack. And he goes, no, that was destined to
holding
fail.
action.
Yeah, at best.
Yeah,
at best. And I know the Luftwaffe was effectively completely destroyed in Battle of Bulge as well.
Absolutely.
They had no air force after Battle of Bulge.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like the last bits of Hungary that they're holding are actually around Lake Balaton. Actually, have the last oil reserves available to the Axis forces. So that's why they're really trying to hold it. They're trying to re-establish a stable line.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah. And that's the troops retreat back into Austria. A lot of them surrender, particularly to Americans rather than Soviets.
Yeah.
And that's really the end of the fighting for Hungary. The next year they will be turned into a communist state.
God damn, man.
Yeah,
it's pretty brutal.
By 1946, they're a communist state.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Although, I mean, I shouldn't be surprised because that's pretty much what happened to every country that Soviet Russia
It's
conquered.
just kind of ironic because they were like, no.
Well, it's
anything
interesting.
but communism.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting because they actually raise Hungarian troops in the city based on the concept that we're going to fight against communism.
Yeah.
So like the University Assault Battalion, which is a specific unit that is like the only paramilitary unit that gets rolled into the Honved, so the Royal Hungarian Army. There's like 500 uni students that they just go, we're fighting against communism. And they go, we'll join the force.
Could you imagine trying to, like, weird side note, but could you imagine trying to do that today? Like, try and get uni students to fight? It just wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
You might have to offer them alcohol and, frat parties.
I guess people were just cut differently back in those days. It's like, protest? What do you mean protest? I'm going to go to war. Give me a rifle.
Yeah.
I'm not going to protest against Marx's communism. Give me a bolt action rifle.
Yeah. And it's quite interesting. Like there's a far stronger sense of nationalism in that era than there is now.
Yeah.
It's just massively
nationalism
more.
was
Postmodernism. My camera's about to die, so we'll just take a quick break here. Redo the cameras, and then don't you fuck it.
Yeah, we can actually get into the units then.
Yeah, and then we can actually get into the meat of the bolt action.
How many times are you going to check the equipment in this half?
I only checked it like
27 times?
34. Cool. Well, let's do that then, hey?
All right.
Cool. Okay. So now we're back.
We are indeed.
I guess it's time to start talking about Hungarians and why I think they're better than Germans.
Here we are. Here's the
I love how
contention.
we said, like, Jackson, you can do the intro, and you've just like, this is my show now.
I'm here for it.
Absolutely. I'm only doing this once, so you know.
Is this what it's like to have a paid vacation
Yeah.
on a podcast?
Unpaid vacation.
Oh, you're not getting paid?
Wait, you guys are getting paid?
Moving on.
Okay. So I guess before we talk about Hungarians, it's worth talking about their national special rules, which there's only 2 of.
Please.
Seems reasonable. Is this what I sound like, Tyler?
What do you mean?
Before we talk about this, let's talk about something else instead.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, now that you bring it up.
Yeah, national
okay.
rules. Sorry.
Hit us with national
So
rules.
the one that's kind of secondary and pathetic is all Hungarian HQ units, so medics, officers, forward observers, etc., count as fanatics. Now, that does not come into effect because you're usually playing with a 2-man
Yeah.
thing, and when you lose one guy, you lose fanatics.
Yeah.
And it's meant to represent the fact that Hungarian officers were pretty capable.
Yeah. Okay.
So really, Warlord, if you're listening to this, please rewrite that rule if you ever redo this book. Make it something like a +1 bonus to like morale around them. So rather than a second lieutenant with a +2 and a first lieutenant with a +3.
Oh, yeah.
Like, give it some variety.
I don't understand that at all.
Because you give them a lot of actual the minor powers have this rule, and it's useless.
Is it a holdover from V1?
Yeah, it's a holdover from V1, but fanatics didn't change. So it was just as useless in
Oh,
V1
sorry.
as it is in V2.
I thought it was going to be like, yeah, but the fanatic rule changed.
No, it's not.
So I'm just wondering, like, okay, so if you stack pins on the unit, and then you take an order test, they still care about the pins, don't they?
Yeah, they do. So fanatics gives you in combat you obviously stick around, but when you hit one guy you lose it, and most of the time you're fielding officers as small teams. And the other thing that's forgotten about fanatics is that when you're taking morale checks, apart from a flamethrower, for 50%, you don't take them.
You don't take morale checks for 50% casualties.
And again, if you lose that at one guy, you've got a 2-man team. Generally, it becomes redundant.
I was
really
just wondering,
quickly.
like, if you broke your own rules and you went to a 3-man elements, I wonder if you would actually gain any utility. Because the common trade-off with taking a 3-man section is you lose small team, but you gain an extra wound. And I think somebody did the math on this one, and it basically ends up being the same.
Yeah.
Except that there was an element where if you went to 3-man, it became more of a threat, so you shot at it more. So maybe, like, in pure statistics, small team versus 3-man is about the same, except there's the sort of psychological element where people target 3-man
if
units
I'm
more.
charging my commander with 2 attendants into another unit, something has gone terribly frickin' wrong.
Unless it's a 2 or 3-man element of it, or even a 5-man element of regulars, and you guys are veterans with tough fighters. I'm not saying you would do this. I'm just saying, hypothetically, if you went to 3-man, would you actually gain anything? And I'm still kind of going,
I don't think so.
Not really.
Because the thing is, a lot of the time if a unit shoots at a 2-man small team, you're going to lose the 2-man small team. You're generally going to take 2 casualties. I mean, it doesn't happen. Occasionally it doesn't happen. I mean, particularly if you're playing vets, small team modifier helps a little bit with that. But when you lose that small team modifier and you're still taking a full squad's worth of firepower, you're still going to lose 2 guys and go down to 1.
Yeah.
Generally.
Yeah.
So I just don't find it's worth
then
it.
you take the 50% morale check because you lose it because you're down to 1 man.
Yeah, and you no longer got fanatics.
But, like, what happens to, like, if your command is in combat, something has gone wrong. This isn't Warhammer. You don't put your HQs in combat.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, like, I know that those are the rules for bolt action. I'm saying because they have fanatics. Is there some, is this sort of thing where? But I'm saying let's actually just work through it
for sure.
Because a lot of the times I find that when people talk about war games that they know very well,
you act as if you're familiar.
Yeah, and people will just go, "That's the meta. It's not done, so it's useless."
Yeah.
And you go, "Okay, what does it take to actually make it useful?" And the answer is you can't really. Now, if you could go to, I think in the US D-Day sectors, I've only flicked through some of the unit selections. You can actually get officers that are embedded in squads.
Yeah, and that's worth it suddenly.
So I was just wondering if you could do something like that with the Hungarians. Could you go to 4 or 5-man sections that contain your officer? Because now that's a 5-man like veterans, and if they're all equipped as modeled, oh man, that's a lot of free points. And you give them all fanatics. That's a 5-man AR or SMG
No,
unit.
that's
Absolutely. I mean,
very cheap.
you can
too.
up to 4 men.
Cheaper.
And you get the free submachine guns.
Yeah.
Or rifles.
So you can go up to 4.
You can go up to 4, including the
Okay.
officer.
Okay.
It's okay. I just
Yeah, I'm still not saying you would do
Yeah.
it. I'm just saying, like, at which point would you? And I would probably say 5 is probably the break point.
If you're doing
right?
it for fluff, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
At 5, you would.
Yeah.
As far as other things, this is the special rule that I think
moving on.
lets them jump ahead of Germans.
Yeah.
And that's Axis support.
Okay.
So you basically get to have a unit outside of your normal selector from either the Italian Eastern Front Theatre Selector or the Armies of Germany book.
Ooh.
So that's why you think you've got access to all the cool tools that the Germans do, provided it's reg or inexperienced. You can't take vets, and you can't take an armored vehicle with armor of 10 or 11.
And it's outside the selector.
It's outside the selector.
So you get a free tank or a free... not
free, you pay for it, but yeah.
but you get an additional slot.
So why does that make them better than Germany if they're just taking Germany's toys?
Because it's the added utility.
So say for example...
You're effectively always playing a theatre selector of your design in a generic selector platoon.
Because if you wanted a second mortar, you can take a second mortar.
Or a second sniper.
Right.
Or a second MMG. Or a second Nebelwerfer.
Ooh.
So you can build anything the Germans can,
Yeah.
but with more flexibility.
So it's because you get an extra slot. That's the big
That's
draw.
the big thing, and it affects all of your theatre selectors as well.
Okay.
So you can actually build that on top of theatre selectors as well, and we'll come into that later when we discuss the Budapest Pocket Defenders list.
Yeah.
Because it is scary.
So it's a similar sort of vein as the additional observer the British get, the additional...
Yeah,
free
but it's not
riflemen.
free.
Sorry, yeah. It's in a similar vein.
Yeah.
But you get much more utility out of it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And
do pay
you
for
get
the
access to
utility.
all the cool German toys on top of what you've got in the list.
Okay.
As far as what
Spicy.
the Italy and the Axis book has in it for Hungarians, it covers early war and non-offensive stuff really well.
Yeah.
So, officers, medics, officers, forward observers, regular, inexperienced, and veteran infantry, which are all 13 men, 1 LMG, and NCOs armed with a pistol unless you choose to give them an SMG.
Oh,
13 men's quite interesting playing with a large squad. I have dabbled in it of late, and it's surprising how hard it is to shift a 13-man squad of inexperienced dudes who are sitting somewhere in cover.
My partisans have something to say on that matter.
20-man squads armed with pistols that are shirkers
Oh yeah.
are impossible to shift.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's actually something I really don't want to do more US just because of how much US I've already done, but I just think there's so many there's so many different ways of playing them.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, doesn't mean it exists. I haven't looked particularly hard, but I wonder if there's a 12-man inexperienced infantry squad I can get for US, because you could do like Big Red 1 in North Africa really well. But
They don't really do inexperienced.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
What is it called? First offensives that the Americans are in are all inexperienced squads.
Oh really?
Yeah, it's quite
a lot
funky.
of the North Africa engagements.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm
That
trying to
makes
think of what it's
sense.
called. On top of that, you got cavalry that can't charge.
What?
So you've got a cavalry unit that basically can't charge.
Why can't they charge?
It's part of their special rules. So you're not allowed to charge into combat while mounted.
That's an unspecial rule. That's not a special.
Exactly.
That's the opposite.
Yeah. I don't think you'd generally take her rather than a squad in a truck.
Yeah.
So
How many points per man?
15.
Oh,
So you're still
good
paying
lord.
price.
Good
Oh,
lord.
right. So it's
They're vets on horses.
So it's basically because they can move faster.
But
yeah.
every other cavalry unit can do it.
Yeah. See, there's nothing special except you lose some of the cavalry bonuses.
Okay, I can see why a lot of people look at this at
You
face
might take
value.
it for tough fighters, yeah.
Yeah, I look at this at face value and go, this is garbage.
Yeah.
And not go any further.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see why people get caught up in that, because you go, one of the national rules I can't use, and you start coming across some of these units, you're just like, what?
Yeah,
And
they're pretty, yeah.
And I think that's why it's flown under the radar a little bit.
Absolutely. And Romanians are the same, except
Right.
Romanians are obvious because they've got the free howitzer on top of the same special rule.
What?
Romanians are nuts.
What?
We'll have to have this discussion later.
Oh.
But Romanians get a free howitzer and they can have like that slot breaker special rule from the Axis
Yeah.
support. So you can technically field a 3 howitzer Romanian list in a generic platoon,
That's disgusting.
or a 2 howitzer 2 tank.
So remember how I said I was doing German? I've now determined that was a lie.
What? Yeah. Well, Romanians you can actually field as Allied or Axis.
Okay, we need to do a Romania episode.
Yeah.
So, moving
Absolutely.
on.
You get a medium machine gun, which counts as a German machine gun, so you get the Hitler's buzzsaw on it
Oh, cool.
for free.
Nice.
Does that work for the LMGs as well?
You need to pay for it on some of the Fortress Budapest units.
Right, okay.
Sounds like
Anti-tank rifle,
Bulgarians.
Panzerschreck, sniper, light and medium mortar. The real obvious thing you're missing there is a flamethrower. They did have them. If you want one outside of a squad, again, in this book, you will need to use your slot to grab it from the German list.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Light, medium, heavy artillery, and anti-tank guns. You have got a very broad selection of tanks. Most of them are garbage. Hungary had quite a lot of infrastructure compared to some of the other Axis supporting nations, like Romania and stuff. So they actually did design their own vehicles.
Right. Okay.
A lot of them are light tanks with one main gun and a coax MMG. They're pretty average for the most part.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're early war tank designs.
They are very much early war tank designs. Same with their early war tank armored car designs.
Yeah, sure.
A truck with no MMG.
I mean,
it
it also kind of makes sense if most of your economy is kicking up in the interwar period,
Yeah.
coming back on early
You're
war.
building on it.
A 37mm gun on a tank in early war was more than sufficient.
Substantial, yeah.
Yeah, it was more than sufficient.
Yeah.
Like it's not unreasonable for you to go, oh, okay, yep, fair enough.
Yeah, absolutely. If you take the late war stuff, you can put some medium anti-tank guns on there. The big one's the Zrinyi, but you won't use the profile out of this book. If you're using the profile, you want to use it out of the Fortress Budapest book. It's actually a far better historical representation.
Wash your mouth out with soap. An accurate historical representation of a vehicle in bolt action.
Yeah,
no such thing.
Yeah. More accurate. Only other vehicle in here of interest is the Nimrod, which is a tankette basically with a flak cannon mounted on the top.
Nice.
So it's open topped. It's 90 points
for
though for a heavy autocannon on a tracked chassis. Oh, sorry.
Wow.
It's probably the best vehicle in this book. In terms of like utility.
I don't play with autocannons enough. Is that good?
Autocannons are awesome.
How many shots is it?
Well, they're the 2-shot weapons.
And how many inches for the template?
There's off the top of my head, they're 1-inch templates.
Oh, okay.
So I think the heavy autocannon's still a 1-inch template, but they've got like a +2 or a +3 penetration. Oof. And you're shooting 2 shots, so you're actually a lot more likely to hit stuff. And it's a D2 pin, so you've a good chance of pinning things as well. So
anything it hits is like dying.
There you go. So if you're using this book, it's probably aimed more towards the early war and mid-war stuff. It has its limitations. It's got all the core basics to field a functional list. Yeah. Unlike some of the other minor nations.
Yeah.
But the real juice comes in your Fortress Budapest book.
Yeah. So the Italy and the Axis book was the first kind of supplement for Hungary?
Yeah, well, that's got all the Axis minor nations.
Okay.
So Finland, Italy.
Yeah, right.
Not that Italy is actually that minor of a nation. Same with Romania.
Italy and the Axis.
Yeah. Romania, Bulgaria. So Dan would be using this book for his army.
Yeah.
Yeah. You then have Fortress Budapest. And Fortress Budapest is awesome. There is so much cool stuff in here. The scenarios are really good. And actually, heads up for anyone looking to improve their play, start doing some scenarios. They're unbalanced. Most of them you can work around in the majority of the more recent books. Particularly this one, they look unbalanced. If you put some thought into it, they're actually very evenly matched depending on what you put in your army.
Okay.
I've played through the majority of them, as I said earlier, with the Mundane Knights. I would attribute that to, I guess, learning some of the finer points and quirkier things you can do is actually down to scenario play.
Oh, yeah, it's that idea that you handicap yourself.
You're forced to think outside the box.
Yeah.
And then, we're talking about Fortress Budapest. You will probably use the majority of your units out of this book if you can.
Okay. If your TO allows it.
Yeah, if your TO allows it, if the format you're playing in allows it.
Yeah.
Almost every unit in here is actually allowed in a generic platoon. So it's all future-proofed to fall in line with Warlord's latest FAQ, which everyone was really angry about.
Wow. The thing that didn't need to be FAQ'd.
Yeah, well, didn't need to be FAQ'd in the Perth meta. It needed to be FAQ'd in some of the other metas, I think.
Well, it's just this idea that you can the rulebook tells you what you can do. It doesn't tell you what you can't do.
Yeah.
And there are some units that says can be used in a reinforced platoon, and there are other units that didn't have that phrase. It's like
use your brains.
Well, not use your brains, but it's just like
apply logic.
The book is a permissive rule set. It tells you all the things you can do, so you can do it. Yeah, it's like my tank can fly.
Yeah, it's like rules as written, not rules as not written.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
just like spotters. If anybody saw that Facebook post,
we actually got a response from freaking Warlord about that.
We
didn't.
We can't
Sorry,
take credit.
by we I meant as in like
the community.
The community.
That Graham, whoever that dude was, absolute champion. and I think the best part, as everybody pointed out, was that Connor from Warlord Games is like, you're talking about the Facebook post.
We were seen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Once again, when I say we, I mean the community.
That was so fantastic.
Absolutely.
For those of you who don't know, there was a guy trying to use the spotter's line of sight as direct
anti-tank shells out of 88.
36.
36 was it?
Yeah. My favorite post on that was some guy being like, "No, I choose to believe this interpretation of the rules. My spotter is now a god who can shoot who can shoot flak 36 from the edge of his fingers." Like,
that's my kind of spotter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an amusing conversation to say the least.
Amusing's not the right A word. I would have used.
Antagonistic.
Keep going. Maybe when the cameras stop rolling.
Anyway,
okay, so you've got basically veteran, inexperienced, and regular and inexperienced shirker units in here, plus some new late war hardware. Basically, it's all an extension of the units used in here. Yeah. It's still a 13-man squad LMG. You got a higher rate of access to SMGs, so 3 or 4 in a lot of the squads, like the experienced Honved division squad. And you gain access to 2 Panzerfaust squad and an LMG,
Spicy.
which can be buffed for 5 points to a German one.
It's 25 points.
25 points. I would not pay for an LMG at 20 points outside of some very specific circumstances. That's a personal opinion thing. Gorchin will probably tell me I'm wrong.
No, well, I by and large would agree.
Yeah.
But you're also talking to an American player where I can get the same LMG firepower for half the points.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
more survivability. So like,
yeah.
Seeing some of the American list is disgusting. You're like, you have how many infantry and what kind of weaponry? Are you sure you're not Soviets mixed with Germans?
Our meta is very infantry heavy and very veteran infantry heavy.
Yeah, this is true.
I'm hoping to change that. Yeah, high explosive everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm bringing at least 4 templates every game.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm getting to the point where it's like, you know what? Let's change this. I'm sick of seeing 4 veteran squads of 10 guys on the table.
I mean, I love infantry.
So. Yeah, that's Gorchin's modus operandi whenever he puts an army on the table.
Yeah. I think we've actually talked about that in this podcast about how you're like, yes, core 4 squads, veteran, 10 men.
4 squads or 5 squads is okay. It's the veterans, massive squads that drive me nuts. It's like, seriously? This again?
Look, I started at 3 and everybody was just like, go to 4.
Yeah.
And then I did 4 and I was like, this is great. Imagine what I could do with
5. Yeah, I love big squads of infantry as well, but I'm just sick of seeing big squads of veteran infantry.
AR-toting
fanatic veterans.
Anyway. Yeah, but that's different because it's one squad in an army.
Yeah. So what we really need to do now is we need to pick your brain for how to build a list.
Yeah.
Because there's a few people who've been graced by your wizardry.
That's a lie.
One of them at this table.
The wizardry bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly feels like magic.
So there's a lot of like axioms that I've heard you cast during.
I have lots of opinions. Some of them are probably wrong.
During our games, but they're all well reasoned. So, like, if you were to build, actually, we can go through your Hungarian list.
Yep. Okay.
And then you can tell. Hopefully we can pull apart all of the axioms. And if there's any that I know of that you haven't mentioned, we can deep dive into.
Yeah. Okay.
So, with all of those Hungarian toys and one extra German one,
yeah,
what is your Hungarian list?
Okay, so I've been playing a lot of different stuff. There's a huge amount of variety in the book, in in the list once you add the Fortress Budapest stuff.
So
lots of militia, lots of generic infantry.
Yeah.
I tend to find I've been running the Budapest Pocket Defenders list as my prominent list. That is essentially a generic platoon.
Yep.
You get 1 extra infantry squad.
So you can go to 6.
Yep. You're limited in what you can take in terms of vehicles. You can have 1 armored car or tank or flak vehicle rather than your tank type slot and your armored car slot.
Yeah.
And then the bonus for the list is that you can combine German and Hungarian units. I started out playing predominantly German units when I first built the list. The more I play, the more I start using cool Hungarian stuff.
Right. Okay.
To the point now it's down to like 4 squads of Germans and the rest of the army is
one
Hungarian.
free slot of German equipment.
On top of that.
On top of any one of your slots could be a German.
Yeah.
Right.
So you have the normal platoon, which can be German or Hungarian units, provided you have a German officer, you can use German units.
Right. Okay.
Hungarian officer, you can use Hungarian units in there as well.
So you're the Pocket Defenders, is that a theatre selector?
Yeah, that's a theatre selector.
Okay.
The only other bonus in there is you get D3 6-inch hardcover linear obstacles.
Yeah. Okay.
That kind of doesn't come into effect.
From Italians, right? That's kind of where we first saw that.
It's I think that you get more access though. That's actually full blown emplacements rather than specific like 1-inch slots.
So that means like you can place your own fortifications on the board.
Yeah, you could drop a Nebelwerfer behind hardcover in plain sight.
Yeah,
it can be nasty.
Nice.
The reality is though, you can build any of that list in a generic Hungarian platoon or a generic German platoon.
Okay.
There are some other cool toys in there that you're probably likely to play from the Hungarian side. Hungarians actually have awesome anti-tank capability because you get access to a huge amount of German tank.
Bolt action.
Yeah, in bolt action.
Yeah.
Let's not discuss the historical reality, particularly at the Don River.
As we've said about bolt action, it's a war game first.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have access to your Panzerschreck anti-tank rifle, a good selection of German tanks, including Panthers, Tigers, Panzer IVs, Stugs, Hetzers.
Hetz are gonna Hetz.
Absolutely. Baby's first Stug. As I like to say. You then get access to a couple of funky things from the Hungarian list. Probably the one that jumps out most people will have seen is the mace thrower. And that is an awesome piece of equipment. It is patently horrifically bad. I would say it's not points efficient at all for what you want it to be doing. It is so much fun to play.
What's a mace thrower?
Okay, picture this.
What did I say?
Buzagana Vetter. I'd probably mangle that as well. But mace thrower. It's a late war rocket launcher that the Hungarians developed. Hungarians developed the Panzerraum, which is based off the American bazooka. So that's the third nation to form to design rocket weaponry.
Yeah, right.
So you're allowed to play a bazooka in your list. That's quite cool.
Handheld rocket weaponry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, shape charge stuff.
Yeah.
And then they had the mace thrower, which was deployed first at the Attila line and then used pretty extensively around the city of Budapest and to a lesser extent around Lake Balaton. Now, picture this. It's a Maxim machine gun trolley, so I captured one from the Soviets.
Right.
They've now put a blast shield off to one side.
Okay.
And then they've put what looks like 2 massive Panzerfausts on top.
Fantastic.
And it can be fired as either anti-tank or high explosive.
These are my kind of people.
And historically, in Soviet weapons testing, it had the highest penetration of any shape-charged weapon deployed in the war. They punched through 300 mils of IS-2 armor in their testing.
Good Lord.
Jesus.
So it counts as a high anti-tank shot is a +7. And the high explosive shot's a 3-inch.
Yeah.
The issue with it is it's 120 points reg, or 87 in experience. It kind of works out all right.
What's the range?
36.
That's not bad.
But
we need to talk about this in a G&T weird weapon special because this thing looks janky.
It's funky as. But it's got a twin rocket salvo because they have the 2 rockets on there.
Yeah.
So you need to declare which round of ammunition's on the thing.
Yeah.
You've got to fire 2 shots with that ammunition.
Yeah.
Then you can choose to change ammunition. So it is really, really inflexible.
And you only get to fire 1 shot.
1 shot each turn.
Oh, I thought you were about to be able to fire 2 shots in one turn. I was like, oh my God.
It's got slightly bad wording.
I want that tank dead.
Yeah.
See that?
2 + 7 shots would be brilliant. But sadly, it's 1 over 2 over
but
every each
did you
turn.
say +7?
+7, any tank.
Yeah.
at a 36-inch range.
Holy cow, man!
Yeah.
So, but people look at it, go, it's weird. I'm going to kill it.
Well, I don't blame
Is there
them.
anything more human?
So it doesn't actually survive very long when I deploy it on the table. So I have actually been experimenting because the Hungarians actually get basically their version of the Nebelwerfer, the Sorovesto. That's how you pronounce it. Yes, it is. And so I have been playing it of late since I've gotten the Mace Thrower painted. And have been playing the Nebelwerfer, inexperienced, and then a reg Mace Thrower, and kind of going, you know what? You either choose to go after the Mace Thrower or the Nebelwerfer. You know, take your pick.
Choose your poison.
Absolutely. I think to date, out of 5 games, my Mace Thrower has killed 1 unit of infantry and nothing else.
Jeez.
It just tends to die.
It's still only one shot.
It's still only 1 shot.
How big's the crew?
4.
Oh yeah,
But
tough enough.
unlike your...
Do they get gun shield?
No.
Well, where's the shield?
It's a
blast
blast shield on the side. It's to keep you alive from getting cooked by the high explosive.
Oh.
It's just a
explosive
tripod
upwards.
with 2 giant Panzerfaust on it. Where's the gun shield?
Well, that's what I'm trying to... Because I was
has the
looking
blast
at
shield on
picture.
the side.
It's on the side. I'm like, do they hide on one side of the carrot? No, okay, that makes sense.
It's
a
to
blast
not
shield.
get murdered when you
Yep.
pull the trigger.
Yeah, flambe.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah, so that's quite funky to use. You would tend to see that a lot if people are playing late war Hungarians. It's a cool piece of equipment.
So cool.
It's not very efficient. It has got the perk in that you can actually move it around, unlike a normal super heavy anti-tank gun. Only 6 inches. A turn. And it counts as 6 when you shove it in transport.
I mean, when you talk about, like, you know, efficiency, you're talking to a dude who took a Panther to
absolutely.
a tournament. So I'm all about that funk.
Yeah,
like,
I kind of go, you know what, I blend efficiency and fun. I've found a way to make it work by including the Nebelwerfer.
Yeah.
The reality is the Nebelwerfer generally does most of the work or dies. Yeah, so my list as of now, we have actually gone through some of the funky stuff. At the moment...
Sorry, just before we get past the funky stuff,
Yeah.
I was doing some research on Hungary, and they developed their own 105mm howitzer. Is that correct, or am I talking
I've got no idea.
Well,
hot shit?
it would be like most of the artillery weapons for most of the nations were holdovers from World War One.
Yeah, like, I think they use the Skoda artillery pieces pretty heavily. They use German equipment pretty heavily as well.
Yeah. Because I was pretty sure I saw it was like right near the end. I think it's in one of the scenarios actually. In the Budapest book, they were talking about how the Romanians made their own massive barrel like howitzer.
That might be more Romanian than Hungarian or something. I might have missed something.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I just thought because that thing looks funky, the German one at least. So
Yeah. Yeah.
sorry, go on about your own
all
list.
good. Yeah. So at the moment, I'm kind of running sort of 3 squads of vets. You know, first lieutenant because you really want that morale bonus. If you take it as German, you give it to the rest of the army.
As we said, a second lieutenant's a tax.
Yeah. And a first lieutenant gains benefit from German national rules and can order 3 units around at once.
Very nice.
I have tried the second lieutenant with the German bonus. The +1 morale just is so useful.
Yeah.
Like it's just too hard to shift with having a +2 morale rather than a +1. Even if you do get the UMen snap 2, it just comes into effect so much more. And Tyler's doing his funny dance again.
Turn the lights on.
Yeah. So yeah, my list at the moment is sort of 3 squads, core of decent troops.
Yeah.
So 2 German units because you get access to a particular SS squad from the German part of the book. So it's either SS squads or veteran grenadiers. You tool them up with Panzerfausts and weaponry to suit. Generally assault weapons.
How many SMGs or ARs do you take?
My rule of thumb is that a squad functions with close assault weapons once you hit 3.
Okay.
So 3 to 4 is generally what I'll put in a squad because then I'm not over investing.
Right. Okay.
And that's
1 or
sort
2
of,
doesn't make that much of a difference.
No.
5+ is a bit too much of an investment.
5+ is all right, but if you're running a 6-man squad or a 7-man squad, you very quickly start losing SMG dudes.
Yeah. Okay.
Ablative wounds.
Ablative rifleman.
Yeah, ablative rifleman. Despite the fact that riflemen are actually awesome in BA, and I would rate that as a very, very, very important weapon.
Yeah.
It's just so much better than playing an LMG.
You say that, but when I shoot you at long range, you're still removing rifleman, Jackson. I have seen you do that time and time again.
Yeah, but I'm a hyper-aggressive player. I will always go after getting my army up close and personal and shooting stuff up.
Fair enough. But if you go for like 8-man squad, for example, you take 3 to 4 ARs and a couple of Panzerfausts.
Yeah.
You can still afford to take a couple of wounds before you start losing any.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
of the
makes
real
sense.
teeth.
Yeah, I tend to stick to 6 or 7-man squads with that.
Sure.
And then my bulkier squads tend to be regs.
Okay.
And generally Hungarian regs, because you just get the Hungarian unit. If you look through the other selector options, they're the only regular unit. I think it's the experienced one vet division.
Mm-hmm.
They're the only unit that gains access to that, magical 3-4 SMGs, as well as your option to then go for an LMG or a anti-tank weaponry or more Panzerfausts or whatever. So it's just that little bit more flexibility, because if you're playing here Grenadiers, just the regular here Grenadiers, they're limited in what they can take in terms of assault weaponry.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's only 1 or 2 SMGs.
Yeah, 1 or 2 SMGs, like maybe 1 or 2 assault rifles. Personally, I think SMGs are better than assault rifles.
Why?
Having played a lot of assault rifles and a lot of SMGs, the bulk of your combat is going to happen within that 6 to 12 inch range.
Yeah.
Which doesn't really
The
come
bulk
into
of-
play.
When you play aggressive.
Yeah. When you're playing aggressive. With assault rifles, I feel they're just that little bit, that 2 points more than an SMG.
And
For
that
the
3
extra
inches
6
doesn't
inches.
make
I play very aggressive. I like to be within 6 inches.
smallest. Well, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and it's again cheaper.
Isn't it 6 inches?
Well, I was talking about the half.
Oh,
yeah,
the half,
'cause you're
yeah.
9 inch range.
9 inch
yeah.
full. Yeah.
So yeah, I just find I get more utility out of SMGs than assault rifles. I'll include a squad of assault rifles because they look cool.
That's kind of where I come from. Assault rifles are dope.
Yeah, and there's some really nice winter German miniatures out there with assault rifles.
Yeah, they look very cool,
Mm.
Yeah,
especially when you've airbrushed them.
Gorchin's been painting again. Yeah, so then I'll build on that, and then I often will take inexperienced squads. And I'll often play either Aracross Fascist Party because they're shirkers, and they're really
Why?
cheap.
Because they're shirkers.
Because they're cheap.
Okay.
You can take a squad for 60 points. That's huge, and it doesn't matter what happens to them.
God, it's so fun shooting at that squad
Oh.
because it's just like a Jack in the Box of just pins just coming out. Every time you shoot it, they just like vomit pins.
Yeah, they don't rely on them to attack something. If you need something to hold something, they're great.
Yeah.
And I'll often play an inexperienced squad. I think the replacement Honved division that are green, purely because again they're just cheap. And I love playing with bait, and I think that's an underutilized part of bolt action.
Yeah.
But playing with 3 or 4 squads that are bait, and if your opponent chooses to ignore them and think the rest of your army is bait, they're suddenly not bait and they're laying down pins everywhere.
Yeah.
Because you only need 6 guys in a squad to consistently get a pin on a unit most turns, against a target that's already activated.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll often play with 3 or 4 squads of chaff, as I like to call it.
So your list building for infantry is veteran is about 7.
Yep.
Regular is about 10.
Yep.
And inexperienced is like 12 plus.
As
As a general rule of thumb.
As a general rule of thumb for most armies, yes. When
Okay.
you start changing your roles up, I'll often play with 5 or 6 veterans in a squad.
Yeah.
I might play with 13 men in a reg squad.
Yeah.
Because
But
good luck shifting it.
That's sort of bell curve.
Yeah.
If you put the center of your bell curve, it would be 7, 10, and 13.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And often I'll play inexperienced actually at 7 or 8 guys.
Yeah. Sure.
Because they're bait.
Yeah.
And if my opponent chooses to ignore them, they're a 40-point squad that are going to put a pin down every turn.
Yeah. And if they do go for them, they've typically activated or exposed the more
Absolutely.
expensive unit to take that out.
Yeah.
And it is really hard to not just grab an easy order dice like that.
And they're visually quite intimidating. Like if you're running 6 squads, you can put a reg squad on a flank on its own.
Yeah.
And you can put an inexperienced squad and an inexperienced machine gun. More on the inexperienced machine gun later because I think I might have finally found a use to make machine guns worth it.
Oh.
Yeah. But if you put those 3 units on a flank, people look at it and either go, yeah, that's an easy kill, I can go after it. And you can deploy those like first deployment, part of your deployment. People will either counter deploy or just ignore it. And if they choose to ignore it, you've suddenly got these units that you can swing around to put pins on things, suppress things, get in the way, grab objectives. Or if
just
they look
interrupt
at
thinking.
Yeah. Or if they look at it and go, that's really
Annoying
looking, and go after it, you can then counter deploy and they're attacking something that's not worth it. Or more likely, people as a rule of thumb tend to be fairly visual. And if they look at a portion of the board and there's 30 guys sitting over there, they'll go, that's really intimidating. I'm not going to attack that.
Yeah, okay.
and it might not matter that the fact that those 30 guys are pretty useless for the most part. But yeah, it's quite a good intimidation tactic to just drop extra squads down. Yeah.
Why do you think I bring a panther?
Absolutely. There is a large
a
psychological
toon
element to this.
Panther.
A tomb panther, yeah.
Painted pink.
It's so cute.
Yeah. I've yet to play against it. I need to at some point. I want to mace thrower it.
Oh,
I
please. I want to see
actually don't
that.
think I've played against you, Tyler.
Yeah, I have.
Not with our own lists.
No.
No, we've never played bolt action. I was like, yeah, but that was
Varsity. I wasn't playing. I was just yelling at you to play because you were too busy having a good fucking time.
I was having a great time. No,
How dare you?
we also played not Team Yankee.
7 Days to the River Rhine.
7 Days to the River Rhine.
Yeah.
But we've
Which
never
is a good
actually.
version of Team Yankee.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we've never played. I can't believe that.
All right, here we go. We're learning about each other.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's only
Yeah.
taking you how many months
Yeah.
or years?
Look at this. Last time I got your name right, Tyler.
Yeah, no. Finally.
This time,
Would you
Realize-
believe this dude?
Yeah. And we have a team building exercise coming up too.
Yeah,
We're playing Dueling Aces together as a team.
oh,
And Brad and I are going to kill you.
Oh, is it you and Brad now?
Yeah, it's Brad and I now because
Oh,
Jacob's
of
in lockdown.
course, Yeah.
yeah,
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
he's fine. He didn't catch it. He's fine.
He's alive.
fine.
He's just
No.
locked away.
He just went on a work trip. Remember the work trip we talked about last episode? Those following along at home? Yeah. Well, that got cancelled because of the lockdown. And so he went.
Postponed.
Yeah, sorry, postponed because of the lockdown. And so then he got locked down in the other state. Has to
Almost.
come back almost
Yeah.
locked down. But now he has to isolate for 2 weeks anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
It wasn't at any of the exposure sites, but
no.
You have to be-
It's taken you how many hours to tell your listeners this information as to why he's not here?
well, Jacob's personal life.
Yeah, good point.
He can do what he likes.
He can do whatever he wants.
And
That's fine.
it's not because I forget his name sometimes.
Who's the other one?
Poor Jacob.
David?
David?
David.
David.
Shame
David's
David
not
couldn't
here.
make it.
We
David
love you,
Newsom.
Dan, please come.
Yeah.
Sorry, yes,
that
your
was your
list.
infantry choices.
Yeah, so I'll often blend that, and things do change. I have been known to run
Yeah.
like 6 squads of 13 guys.
when do you
Yum.
sit on snipers?
I would consider
the knee
it one
joke
of-
is auto include, right?
Yeah, it depends what you're expecting to face, and it depends what you're expecting to play.
Oh, such a boring answer.
If you're not running stuff you want to keep alive, like small teams that you want to keep alive,
Yeah.
you don't need to include one.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you're really chasing, like I love snipers for the fact that you can they're a good way to grab an order dice early. So I often will run a vet sniper in this particular list.
Why would you run anything else?
A reg sniper's quite good.
But the 15
yeah.
points is not really worth it somewhere else.
Yeah, it depends what else you want
It's
to include
not
in your
even
list.
an LMG.
Yeah, but it is 3 BARs, which is a German LMG. Oh, it's a German MMG.
I hate Americans. I can't wait to play them at Dueling Aces.
Yeah, you're gonna love that selector.
Mm.
Oh, you didn't even get Marines because yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah, we will need you guys will need to do an episode on this next time. Dueling Aces.
oh, for sure. We might
Yeah.
get you and Brad on. See,
That'd be cool.
See if
Yeah,
Brad's
have
for
to
it.
have a chat with Brad.
By the way, Brad,
Hey, Brad.
Yeah.
if you're keen to be on the show,
Yeah. Let's talk about this next weekend when we're playing.
yeah,
Because I think there's only like 5
gotta
teams or
stop
6
doing
teams or something, so I'm sure we'll probably run across each other in the day.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So after that, I would often include a sniper. It's quintessential city fight.
yeah.
Like, why would you not for thematic reasons?
Did you see the partisan sniper that's embedded in a squad?
Ooh.
Yeah, I think this was in. I'm trying to remember where I saw this. I think this is actually in the USD Day selectors. You can get. I will have to double check this, but
Please.
you have to take them inexperienced.
Yep.
So they get the neg one to hit.
Yep.
But if you give them a fire order, you can elect to like pair off 2 guys as a sniper team, and they can like pick a target.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I think it's like I don't think you actually like you pay the points, but you don't get a sniper rifle. You get like expert
normal.
marksman trait,
Yeah. Okay.
and so that allows you to do that if you don't move them.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's very cool.
That's
But you
cool.
still get the neg one to hit
Yeah.
But you're hitting on 3+.
4+ because it's neg one. Didn't
Yeah.
experience.
And seeing as snipers never hit when they don't need a 3+, I mean a 4+ makes it just impossible.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
what's the point of them then?
Well, you have a 10 wound sniper.
Yeah,
And you can have multiples, right?
I think you can have like one in each.
But they
you can take
can't
more
have
than
the
one
range.
Squad, yeah.
They don't have the range.
36 inches.
Oh, they do have the range.
Yeah. It's like if you sit, you don't like elect one model to be. I got to go double check this. You don't elect one model to be the sniper. I think you get like a sniper team in the squad. So I think like you don't have to like model them, but I think if somebody does exceptional damage, they can get rid of your sniper. But yeah.
Okay.
Something worth checking out later.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. And at the moment, I'm running an MMG team in the list. Because I'm running it inexperienced, and it's not
Sacrilege.
because. I love medium machine gun teams. Every time I see one on the table, it's always this cool, well-modeled miniature.
Yeah.
They just look really
pretty
distinctive.
good.
They're a cool part of, I guess, the theme of running.
And I love
World War II
weapon
stuff.
teams. That's like my favorite stuff.
Yeah.
Modeling a bolt action.
Absolutely, it looks awesome. So I've got a Hungarian one that I just cannot force myself to not play. Because it just looks cool. It's just fun to play. And I've been running.
All you need.
Yeah. How do I make this worth it?
Yeah. Okay.
And I've been running them inexperienced. Partially because the Hungarian MMG gets, the utility of having that sixth shot.
Okay.
But also running it inexperienced, it's a really good pin generator because you're shooting those 6 shots. You've got good odds of throwing a pin on something. And it makes perfect sniper bait. Like really good sniper bait. If someone looks at it and goes, I'm going to shoot that inexperienced medium machine gun team, you've suddenly you bought yourself at least one extra turn to shoot their sniper with your sniper.
Yeah.
And again, you
So what
can
you're
put it
saying
on a
is
flank.
I should take 3 in the US list.
And
Take things to the extremes, Gorton.
So
That's you don't know me, Jason.
that's how that works.
When you did that in his bulk inexperience list, 3 medium machine guns.
I'm trying to think. Like I'm working out the process behind it. So inexperienced medium machine gun.
35
You're
points,
throwing
6
out
shots.
6 shots.
Needing 4s to hit generally. Probably
35.
5s or 6s.
Looking for 5s or 6s normally to hit. Probably
4, 5, 6s.
4, 5, 6s.
Yeah, but
sorry.
5s or 6s by the time you start adding
Sure,
extra
yeah.
penalties.
4, 5, 6.
If your opponent shoots it,
That
doesn't
makes
matter.
Yeah, no, it doesn't
and buys
matter.
you time to deal with their sniper.
And you're going to be, like you've got 6 shots, so you're gonna
probably
pin
put a
something.
pin on something. Yeah.
That's pretty
And
good.
You put it on a flank with another unit that you really don't care about.
Yeah, and they have
suddenly
gun
they look
shields,
like
don't they?
No, that's
It's
only
a
the Soviet
machine
one.
gun.
Only the Soviet ones get gun shields.
Okay. What is my obsession with gun shields today?
We played too much Call
You
of
get
Duty.
a gun shield. You get a gun shield. Sorry, go on.
I think we need to shield you from guns.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Really bad pun. Yeah, it's just that extra little bit of utility. You can put it on a flank. It'll throw out a pin. It'll support another unit that doesn't really matter. And it's extra order dice.
That's really impressive. For how many points did you say?
35.
35. It took me months of thinking to work this out.
Yeah, that's like what paid off. That's really
when
good.
we did New Dawn,
Yeah.
I took 3 regular MMGs, and it was like pretty filthy. I didn't use them very well because I don't use MMG teams that much. But even when I was just like ham fisting like how to MMG in bolt action, I was like, oh god, that is so much firepower. And everybody was like freaking out over them. All of my opponents are like, that's 3 MMGs. And I'm like, yeah, it's only 15 shots. Oh,
Yeah.
oh my God.
They're not particularly points efficient, but
No,
or survivable.
In hindsight, I probably should have taken them inexperienced. But it was just like, you see a howitzer out there and they're just like, oh, I'm just going to pin that. I'm just going to keep pinning it.
Yeah.
It's got a gun shield. You're not killing anyone. Yeah, but it's at next 3 pins. Good luck.
Good luck. Have fun.
There's something you tend to drop if you're running really hyper efficient lists,
yeah.
but you can make them function. And then I'm generally running my second slot from the Axis support as artillery.
Yeah.
And usually a Noble Werfer and a Mace Thrower. As I said, that combo works well.
Where do you sit on mortars?
I have been known to play without them.
Okay.
But I do
begrudgingly.
Nah, there's perks not including a mortar. It's another 60 points you can shove into infantry or tanks or something.
I think it's 50.
60 if you include a spotter, which you should always should.
Yeah.
Just because that extra utility.
No arguments here.
If you're using a Nebel
Werfer.
Thank you.
Proud of you, Tyler.
Thank you.
You're learning.
Does that take up your mortar?
No, that's an artillery slot. It's abusive.
Because
those things need fixing.
Yeah.
They need fixing.
Yeah.
Yeah, multi-launchers are a bit weird.
Yeah, they're hit and miss, but it's when you start doubling them up, they...
I mean, you can say that about any weapon in bolt action.
Absolutely. It's just the way the system works. But the thing is, like, you suddenly have that with a mortar, the ability to reach units that you wouldn't be able to affect at anywhere else, and the ability to threaten entrenched units. Yeah. I've seen light mortars used to great effect just to try and make people move their snipers. Yeah.
I'm a massive fan of using mortars to get rid of like snipers. Yeah. And just like things that don't like moving.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
I try not to get caught up in like counter battery fire. Yeah. Try not to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes
the howitzer goes first, then the mortar.
Yeah. Yeah. So why the howitzer first?
Because howitzer is a lot more likely to hit something if you say your opponent's artillery slots, whether that's an anti-tank gun, a Nebelwerfer, like a multiple launcher, or a howitzer. They just tend to be a lot more likely to hit something than a mortar. Yeah, okay. So you always target that unit that's going to hit first. Yeah. And then you start targeting the units that are less likely to hit.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
And then aside from that...
Just in case our viewers hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
I just get caught up in like the
minutia?
No, the mental image. Yeah, okay. I'm just like, mortars first. Yeah. Because that's what you do. You drop rounds on target, and then now that you suppress them, you move, you advance, you put some fire down on them, and then when they're cowering for the mortar, bullets flying overhead, you bayonet them.
You always target the units that are more likely to activate, and you always use the units that are more likely to hit.
Once again, bolt action is a war game first.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if anyone needs to be reminded of this, just play a game,
or look at the side armor of a Sherman, and then look at the front armor of a Panzer III in millimeters, and then look at their armor values.
Thin sides.
Don't even get me started.
Yeah. No. So aside from that, then I'll occasionally include a tank. I'm not a big fan of armor. The armored car tends to be more valuable just because it makes a great distraction. You can use it generally because they're wheeled to get in behind your opponent, pick off weak units.
So why aren't you a fan of tanks in bolt action?
They don't simulate tanks very well. It's a very simplistic approach.
That's fair.
It's fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're not capturing the treads.
But they're just so expensive for such little return consistently.
Because it's still one order dice. It's still pinning at most 2 units.
Yeah, maybe it's generally 150 to 250 points. Occasionally 300.
Laughs in Panther.
Look, from what I see, everyone either takes an armored car and has a hyper effective list, or they take a tank and have a great time.
What do you mean? I play armored cars and have an absolute ball.
He's saying that your list isn't effective.
All I'm saying is,
here first.
Do you want to put that to the test? I'll come for you.
Or we might. I think we might in Dueling Aces. We'll have to see.
But that's why I take Chaffee.
That's doubles. It's a more of a fun system than a hyper efficient. I mean, I know what I'm bringing is certainly more fun than hyper efficient.
See, this is my thing.
Oh, we're on opposite sides of that table, my friend.
Yeah, I know. You're the awful person playing 3 Chaffies.
Look. That didn't need to be public.
That's not like hyper efficiency.
Yeah, but it is. It's hyper efficiency on a whole new level.
I understand that, but that's also whack.
It's wild.
Like
it's so wild.
That's not something I sit there and go, that's pure efficiency.
Mildly
that's also
sociopathic.
just fucking hilarious.
No, sorry.
Mildly sociopathic.
Yeah, that's reasonable. The other list that we tried was a British version where you lend lease 2 Chaffies. Yeah. And you use the 2 artillery slots with the light howitzer because it doubles as a light anti-tank gun. But what we found was that we just got walked over by 3 Panzer IIIs, and Panzer IIIs are on net slightly worse than Chaffies.
Yeah, right.
Slightly, very much in terms of like points efficiency and all this stuff.
Yeah. Lack of recce hurts.
It's pretty much the main one, but you have better side armor, so that's kind of where the trade is. But the Chaffee has recce and 2-inch HE template. Yeah. So it's like, you just and I think it's 5 points cheaper or something. Yeah. So you just take the Chaffee every day of the week.
No, absolutely.
But yeah, we found that with 2 howitzers and 2 Chaffies, we just got outmaneuvered by 3 Panzer IIIs. And then we went 3 Chaffies and like, this is disgusting. I'm so doing this.
I love this.
And they call the Monday nights the metagamers.
No. We call you guys the power gamers, not the meta.
Power gamers.
The thing is, like, Gorgeton stumbled on that accidentally. He didn't spend hours sitting in a room trying to theory craft that. Did
No,
he?
I did.
We don't either, and he would have.
I made about 16 different lists.
Never mind, I take it all back.
Yeah, the Monday nights just play with whatever we've got and go, yeah, we'll make this work because we're going to have a fun time.
Yeah.
I got 2 extra chaffies 3D printed.
I'm not mad.
You're playing beside this, so you shouldn't be bagging him out.
Yeah, you're also going
You're
to
reaping the rewards of this, and also
I know.
yeah,
you're
taking
also
full responsibility.
using 2 trucks that I got 3D printed for this as well.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I don't know. I'm intrigued. I haven't seen it. I thought it was whack. I didn't realize it was hyper efficient.
Yeah, and look, if you get bored of the HG template, it's still 10 MMG shots.
Brad, we're going to do our best to beat them. If we go out in a blaze of glory, yeah, we know what happened.
Yeah.
Oh, that's too good.
Why do you think you have 24 infantry with tough fighters, Tyler? We've been through this.
Oh, gee, all this extra intel being discovered.
Well, look.
List already submitted, my friend.
Yeah, I know.
Yep.
I'll let Dan know.
Yeah. I still need to because originally I couldn't go. Now I can go. I still have to buy my ticket. Support charity and all that.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm talking to Dan about it, so it's not.
Sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Yes, your list.
Not a fan of tanks.
Not a fan
not
of
a fan of
tanks.
tanks.
That's where we were.
I'll run a Hetzer because it looks cool. It's also tiny, which helps with hiding it. It actually makes it. It's an underrepresented part of playing a tank is that you often, I reckon, should try and choose something that's the smallest silhouette possible.
Yeah.
If you want to be using it efficiently.
Yeah.
If you want to be doing something that's just going to draw all the fire you possibly can, go buy a 148 like KV2 or something. Something huge.
Yeah.
I've got a Toon tank version of the
that's pretty.
Panther. It's pretty disgustingly big in profile.
It makes a brilliant target.
It's great.
Yeah.
And have fun knocking on the side of that Panther, man. Like
Nothing a Hellcat can't fix.
+7 mace thrower.
Oh man, I want to see a mace thrower and go have a go at it.
Yeah, well, that
Nerf
wasn't included.
should make one. Nerf should make like a foam
Just like a
mace
gun
thrower.
platform. They should just make a gun platform. I want to see some kids wheeling one round through the park.
Oh, no,
just with like a.
Do you have like a deployable Nerf machine gun?
Yeah,
That's
I've seen
belt
that.
fed. Yeah,
but I want to see one with like wheels and you got your mate who's got the fucking, like Nerf brand binoculars. Anyway, tanks.
So that's
Yeah.
what we're doing during lunch break, dueling
Yeah.
aces.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well, there actually is a massive park there. We could do that in.
The only person who thinks I'm not serious is probably one of the audience members who doesn't know me very well.
I have to dig out my Nerf weapons. Should we put a message out on the Bolt Action Perth and WA page saying, bring your Nerf weaponry to dueling aces?
This got out of hand really quick. So now you see why I lose half the time against Jackson, because he calls my bluffs.
I love
More
it.
than half.
I love it.
Nerf sponsor us.
Nerf, play your game.
As is
long
West
it's
of
bolt action.
Oz Miniature Painters, who we plugged earlier for Iron Cygnet. If we're going to be doing these fake plugging things,
Are they at
There's nothing fake about that plug.
No.
It's genuine.
That's a very genuine
the
plug.
fake sponsorship? I mean,
Man, could you imagine?
I'm getting paid.
Wait, you guys are
wait, okay.
Wait,
Where
wait,
is my
okay.
cut?
That's cute.
I
It's a guest, not consultant.
Yeah, it's a guest is a tricky word for intern. What
Filing papers.
what was I gonna say?
I have no clue.
Bringing people to
Where
lunch.
are we?
Bolt
Oh,
action dueling
shit.
aces. Nerf for lunch.
Tanks.
No, it was something about
Budapest
dueling
Pocket
aces.
Defenders.
Was there anything
don't
else
remember.
that you would add about your list building?
Look, if with bolt action, I know we talk about efficiency.
Yeah.
And I know that Perth has quite a different meta to a lot of, say, Europe or.
Well, it's just because we run the single platoon meta.
Absolutely. But you can make anything work if you put the thought into it.
Yeah, I would agree.
It might not be efficient, quote unquote.
Yeah. Yep.
But you can make it work.
The efficiency is decided how you, when you use them. It's not decided in the list building stage.
Yeah. And the thing with bolt action is games can swing so quickly because of the way the dice work.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, mama.
So if you're clever with how you're playing, and you know, if you really have got that mindset to just pick your prioritization really carefully, you can make anything work.
Yeah, I think it was something we said in one of our earlier episodes. It's like what we'd say 40% of bolt action is list building.
For sure.
The rest of it's at the table.
Which is why
I'd actually say it's closer to 30%.
There you go. No arguments here.
Yeah, it's at the table.
He's won more games than me.
For sure.
Yeah, but I haven't won a tournament yet.
Oh.
I've yet to ever win a tournament.
Oh, cool. Good to know.
I'm very good at coming second and third. And Russ is very good at being first.
Well, you just got to go to a tournament that he doesn't go to.
Yeah, I have been.
Oh.
Oops.
I had faith.
Yeah, love you, Russ. Basically, I would call him my mentor for all things bolt action and wargaming.
Yeah.
Absolutely phenomenal player.
What do I got to tell you? Just keep telling us that the HMG content is right. Get a mentor. Get play test your stuff. Get out there. Try it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Play what's fun as well.
Ooh,
I'm playing a
know
Mace
about
Lord.
that.
It's not efficient, but just play what looks cool.
No, we are.
Sorry, cut.
Shut this thing down.
Yeah.
What do you mean having fun? Are you kidding me? It's all about the meta.
Yeah, no. It's not. It's not.
Oh, I mean, this is coming from the dude who's about to play 3 chaffies, you know? You know he's a power gamer.
Yeah. I mean, everyone goes on about...
It's a tournament.
Yeah.
It's what we're there for.
No, for
We
sure.
have a bit of a laugh in the Perth community saying that, you know, Gorchin's the Primarch. And the Monday nights are...
It's back!
And that the Monday nights are, you know, the unquote power gamers of Perth.
I think the only
but
people who are in denial about that is the Monday nights.
No, we're not. But seriously, you can learn so much just by playing for fun, thinking things through carefully, scenario play. Like the gloves only come off when we show up to tournaments.
Yeah.
And it really is actually just a more unofficial thing. And not all of us play for the same
stations.
Yeah. The great thing about, for example, the Monday nights is that Russ and I are probably the more competitive ones.
Sure.
And the more efficiency-minded ones.
Yeah.
The rest of us all just, you know, Gary, Clive, and Dave all just rock up and just have fun. They play what they think is cool.
Perfect.
And they're very good players.
Yeah. I've played against Clive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Took my lunch money.
Absolutely. Yeah, Clive's a phenomenal player.
Yeah.
And I do not know anyone who can take apart someone else's army by accident.
Yeah. Yeah.
So efficiently.
Yeah. I don't know. I obviously can't speak. When we played, we just did a kill points one.
Yeah.
I don't know how he does in an objective based scenario.
But
it's
he's a good
just
objective, but kill points based?
Yeah.
Yeah. Clive will just, take your lunch money, as you said.
Yeah. I was just like, I'm going to limp home now.
Jesus.
Do you want the keys to my car? While we're here, Clive?
Well, you were in Rockingham, you know. Yeah. No, have a lot of fun with it. It's a great game. I'm loving the Hungarian stuff at the moment just because there's so much utility and variety. I still will say that you've just got more ability to adapt and build lists that the Germans can build but better.
Yeah, okay.
You know, we haven't talked about what some of these militia can do. If you're really... Lots of weird stuff.
We got time, boy.
We have got time? Okay. For example, your shirkers. Like, no one plays shirkers. You wouldn't want to play an army of them. Although I did talk about taking 2 Stu 42s and 30 Ostrippen to dueling aces, and Jacob vetoed that quite hard.
But that's like, it's funny you say that, but that is like the meta that you see around the world. When you listen to some of the UK podcasts and they talk about the list that they take in 1,000 points, it's literally 4 platoons with 2 squads of like Ostruppen in each platoon, 1 second lieutenant, all inexperienced, and Lorraine Schleppers. Like, that's what the meta is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's just like when people say, oh yeah, that's the Perth meta, it's like, well, it's the single platoon meta.
Yeah.
Is the meta that we play.
Absolutely. And the same with the inexperienced stuff. I mean, for example, you've got Danube Flotilla, which is basically the Hungarian version of the Navy, which patrols the rivers. That's and the whole stack of them got trapped in Budapest. And they ripped all their machine guns off the ships and just walked into the streets. And the machine guns,
a machine gun will fire.
Yeah, but it's MG08, so you can it has 3 shots instead of 4.
Oh my god!
And you can only fire it off a fire or an ambush order.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
But you look at that and go, great, that's an inexperienced squad, so 7 points a man.
Yeah.
You get 5 point. Basically, it's a bar that requires 2 men to fire, and you can only use it in a defensive position, really. But that's a great backline holding unit.
Absolutely,
for long range defense.
Yeah. And you're taking them as shirkers, is what you're saying.
No,
right?
they're not shirkers.
Oh,
you only do that with Arrowcross Fascist Party.
Okay. Right.
Which, if you get a lot of utility out of just using that creatively.
And the thing is, because you can have an extra infantry squad,
You can get away with that.
yeah, you can get.
You could actually technically have 7 if you use the German slot. Yeah,
exactly. So whereas particularly in the way that I build my list, I'm looking at that and going, it's like that's either a squad of veterans that I'm losing, or it's a squad of engineers.
Yeah,
and like that's a big thing for me to change. And then the next question is, what else do I gain with those points?
Yeah.
Do I upgrade my howitzer? Do I upgrade my mortar? Do I upgrade my sniper? I don't have that flexibility. Do I upgrade my chaffee, or do I take an armored car? These are all like not great answers to that solution.
Yeah.
But when you do it with Hungarians, you're like, yeah, I can swap out that squad. I still get my normal aliquot of 5.
Yeah.
Allotment of 5.
choose,
Sorry.
yeah.
And then you go, oh, I've still got an extra 100 points to do with whatever I want.
absolutely. And it's the same. Like there's the Hungarian assault pioneers have a really cool rule called motivated elite, which means they lose D2 pins every time they take an auto check.
Perfect. Oh, successfully. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's
good.
just phenomenal. It's you play it and it doesn't come into effect a lot of the time, and suddenly you get that unit with a flamethrower parked up against another unit, and you lose that extra neg one to hit you're going to take because of the pin.
Yeah.
That's good.
You've got access to University Assault Battalion, which are basically fanatical.
I love that.
Are they fanatics? Of course they are.
Yeah, they're fanatical, inexperienced dudes.
Are they shirkers? Oh, okay.
They're not shirkers.
That would be hilarious. Fanatical
Fanatic
shirkers.
shirkers. Yeah.
Well, if you actually want to go through the full rules of the Aracross Fascist Party, they count as fanatics when they're in combat. So they're shirkers that gain the benefit of... and they used it to great success against Michael Andrews when he cavalry charged this unit of like 6 Aracross Fascist Party guys going, they're shirkers and they're inexperienced. They're not going to do anything. And I went, yeah, they're now inexperienced. They're fanatic because you charged them. And the squads proceeded to wipe each other out.
That's disgusting.
The system works.
It's like the perfect anti-Japanese mechanism.
Right.
Because they're fanatics in assault.
But you're Axis.
Yeah. Which means I never play against Japanese.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's
the fucking bamboo spears.
No, it's not, honestly, it's not the bamboo spear. It's just your stock standard Japanese rifleman.
Yeah,
horrifying.
True. Yeah.
especially veteran.
Yeah, horrifying.
Yeah. Gortron came down the wrong end of Russ and a Japanese list. Don't grudge match someone who's playing Japanese if they never drop a game.
And guess whose idea it was to grudge match? It wasn't mine.
Yeah, you got headhunted.
Yeah, I know I did.
Not intentionally. He just really wanted to play a game against you.
Yeah, I don't believe that. He was like, this guy thinks he can win a tournament? I'll show him.
No, he was actually really looking forward to it.
No, it was a fun game. He played very well.
Absolutely. Yeah. The pair reviews, from what I heard, played very well.
Well, I'm very glad that he said that. The points very much disagreed.
Yeah, but that's the thing with bolt action. I mean, a good game of bolt action, the points may look horrifically one-sided. Yeah. It generally comes down to those last couple of dice.
Yeah. What wasn't the case for that one. I think Russ very much read my play quite well. And he was like, I'm going to disassemble it now. And there was a few things I tried to piece it back together, but they didn't work. So.
Yeah, but he made a few comments about the fact that he made massive mistakes that you managed to capitalize on really quickly.
Yeah, it was he walked a unit from cover out in the open to another piece of cover against 2 squads in ambush with 3 BERs. Ooh. It was like, ooh, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's just so much utility you can do with Hungarians. Like there's a couple of other squads of stuff in here, things that allow you to deploy your unit of infantry last. So after everyone else has deployed their army, before forward observers, and you're allowed to put them hidden and in ambush.
What's the unit?
That's Vanay Flying Battalion. So basically, this rich old dude formed his personal army to defend the city, and it's all the municipal workers. So like
and they're not shirkers.
No, they're regulars that are fanatic. They get some special rules that apply to some of the scenarios.
Public servants.
But they count as being on home ground. So you can deploy them after everything else is deployed. You never take the neg one to coming in from reserve, but you can deploy them after everything else is deployed in hidden and ambush. And they have another cool rule called Uncles and Pups, because the unit was structured so that you had one guy who, like an older guy who had sort of the experience of having fought in the First World War. And then you had a couple of younger guys with him who had no fighting experience but were quite athletic.
Yeah. And
the idea was that that special rule was basically reverse green. You can get your reg shot, and if you roll like a 1 or 2, they downgrade.
Oh my God. How many points are they?
They're 13 points ahead for regs. They're expensive.
That is expensive.
But a lot of this is really well pointed. There's a lot of funky special rules in here. and it's just a lot of utility if you're willing to think outside the box.
Perfect. That
Yeah.
sounds like a really good summary for the Hungarian list.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think
Lot
we've
of-
covered a lot of stuff.
Yeah, funky utility. Got to be willing to think outside the box.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of minor nations.
Absolutely.
Like you really have to think of some different
Yeah.
ways to get them started. Like I know the Finnish as well.
I love my Finns.
I really want to collect some Finns.
They're a cool army to play. There's really two main builds you'll do, which is sort of the bulk rifleman or bulk CC and Kalkapatio.
Sounds like we're going to get Jackson back on the show.
For sure, for sure. We'll see how he feels. After this.
If I make it out of here alive.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to say after dueling aces.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No.
Brad
well,
and I need to come in here afterwards and we can sort of recap.
Yeah.
I think that would be cool.
If Brad's up for it.
If Brad's up for it.
No. Brad's going to be up for it.
No
And he's
pressure,
going to
Brad.
bring in like all of his armies that are beautifully painted, and we're going to take lots of photos
Oof.
because his armies are just magnificent.
You're the photography/film student.
What about it? Bringing it in, yeah. We'll
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
some great. And
We need photos of
we've
Brad's
got your
work.
light box as well. So
Whose light box is it?
your light box.
Thank you, Tyler.
That's what I said.
I'll have it back.
Yeah, it's in my car.
Uh,
But yeah, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me and allowing me to wind you up occasionally.
That's
Oh,
all part of
You
it.
gave him permission?
Absolutely, he did. By inviting me on, he gave me permission.
Right, okay.
I gave permission on your behalf too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. We need to update that guest contract.
No,
Bold
like,
of you
it's
to
always a
assume we use
pleasure. Yeah,
paperwork.
it's
Sorry.
always a pleasure to play with you guys. It's always a pleasure to chat with you guys, whether it's over Facebook or not. It's just awesome to be on here. I mean, I've watched every other episode. It's been really cool.
Yeah, it's really great to hear, Jackson. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to our next game, and I'm hopefully not going to lose that one.
Considering how close all of the other ones are, you probably stand a pretty good chance.
50-50.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
We'll take bets.
absolutely.
We'll take bets.
Yeah, everyone, let's get this betting ring started.
Yeah.
It might be dueling aces though, so it actually probably because they're bringing cheese should be probably 80-20.
How did you know what I was having for lunch?
Wait, so we're allowed to feed him his chaffies?
If you wipe it off the board, you can ram it down his throat.
No. No. Good fucking luck.
Well, obviously not. We're all respectful people. Anyway,
Sometimes.
so thank you very much for joining us on this this month's episode of
It's almost
HMG.
as bad as the G&T special.
Almost as good.
Almost as good. If you like what you see, subscribe on Facebook, like us, subscribe on YouTube, like us on Facebook, chuck us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you listen on. And if you have any emails as well, you want to send something through, we also do check the Facebook comments. If you want to correct us or ask us to cover something or just have a go at, whatever happened on the show, or challenge me. That was something we put out last episode.
Well, you just challenged me.
I didn't challenge you. You
I
challenged.
challenged Tyler.
Okay. Well, you did just say that. we
Well,
hadn't
no,
played and
Gorchin
that-
challenged me for you.
Yeah,
too.
but you were going on about Panthers and Mace Throwers.
You were going on about Maester. Anyway, thank you.
Snap to action. Play one of us.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Play one of us.
Absolutely.
Chat with us. We love talking to you.
You'll have a brilliant hard-fought game.
That's it. Thank you very much for joining us. I've been Tyler.
I've been Gorchin.
And I am Jackson.
And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.